From a blind date came a sister who is a CEO. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 551, Yu Meng's Deep Affection. In the evening, ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Linglin called one after another, directly indicating that their families agreed to open an external market. This surprised Su Weifeng. But soon, a phone call let him know the reason. Who else could have such a great ability except Meng Keqing? You gave them the confidence, right? Su Weifeng answered Meng Keqing's call and asked with a smile. Meng Keqing said with a smile, yes, such a fun thing. In fact, I really want to participate in it myself, but I'm afraid that the impact is too big, so I can only borrow their hands. Su Weifeng was really moved. This matter was not a trivial matter. Even Meng Keqing could not take it lightly. She had strong enough confidence in Su Weifeng, and she regarded Su Weifeng as a real lover, so she could take on this matter so fearlessly. I miss you. Su Weifeng simply said these 4 words. Meng Keqing was silent for a while, and then said, okay, I'll go now. Su Weifeng hung up the phone, and came to the living room downstairs. Lin Zhuangxun, Sun Yumeng, Zhao Xiaoshu, and He Xian were all sitting on the sofa. He Xian had just finished dinner, and had not returned to her room. Although they were not very familiar with each other, these 3 girls made He Xian feel no pressure. In addition, the continuous treatment did make He Xian's condition much better. Su Weifeng's treatment method was to dissolve the breath in her body. As this breath weakened, the torture on He Xian would naturally be alleviated. However, to be completely cured, it would take at least half a month of continuous treatment. Su Weifeng was a little hesitant now. If he wanted to take Feng Baoer to the devil training, he could not take He Xian with him. This treatment would basically be wasted, and he would have to start the treatment again when he came back. What's wrong? Lin Zhuangxuan saw Su Weifeng frowning and asked immediately. Su Weifeng said, I was thinking about what to do with Xian's illness if I go out. Sun Yumeng and Zhao Xiaoshu said in unison, Brother Su, you are going out again. They didn't know what happened today. Su Weifeng nodded and said, I will be away for almost a month this time. Zhao Xiaoshu immediately pouted, obviously reluctant to leave Su Weifeng. She had never hidden her attachment to Su Weifeng, of course when there were no outsiders around. He Xian's face suddenly showed a panic, and she said, Brother Su, can I go with you? Su Weifeng frowned and said, I will be very busy during this period, and the place we are going to is very difficult, and I will not be able to take care of you. He Xian stood up anxiously and said, I don't need you to take care of me. I have my own hands and feet, and I can take care of myself. I'm really afraid that you will not be by my side. I will really panic and be afraid. I'm afraid that it will be like before. I really don't want to endure that kind of pain again. Su Weifeng thought for a while and said, let's talk about this in 2 days. I will think about it again. He Xian said with tears in her eyes, Brother Su, you must take me with you. I have felt this comfortable feeling these days, and I'm more afraid of the feeling that makes me want to die. If Brother Su leaves for a month, I really don't know if I can survive this month. Su Weifeng felt that He Xian was a little out of control and quickly put his hand on her forehead and said softly, then I will try my best to take you with me. After 2 minutes, He Xian calmed down and said gratefully, thank you, Brother Su. Then she looked at Lin Zhuangxuan and the others and said with embarrassment and guilt, I'm so sorry, I couldn't control myself just now. I was sick and felt safer around Brother Su. It's not that I have any thoughts about him. Lin Zhuangxuan said, it's okay, we understand. You don't have to take it to heart. Su Weifeng took He Xian back to the room and prepared to treat her. This time, He Xian grabbed Su Weifeng's hand and said pitifully, Brother Su please, you must take me with you. I can endure any hardship, but I just can't bear this kind of mental torture. Su Weifeng said, okay, then I'll take you with me. He Xian also said with great guilt, thank you, Brother Su. I know I've caused trouble for you. Forget it, I'll take you back, and I have to be responsible for you. Okay, I'll treat you first. After treating Li Xian, Su Weifeng returned to the living room again. Zhao Xiaoshu immediately sat next to Su Weifeng, hugged his arm, pouted her lips and said, "Brother Su, I want to go with you too." Lin Zhuangxuan had already told them both about the situation. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Forget it. This is not a trip. We are going to suffer. Xian has no choice, but I don't want you to suffer with me." Zhao Xiaoshu gently shook Su Weifeng's arm and said, "You just came back from going out, and you are going out again soon. I haven't had a good time with you." Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, "Then your brother Su will be yours tonight." "Really?" Zhao Xiaoshu shouted in surprise at first, but immediately stuck out his tongue and said, "Forget it then. If you hand brother Su to me now, I can't guarantee that he will eat him secretly. Then I will lose my usefulness. You should keep him for yourself, Sister Zhuangxuan." Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled again and said, "I don't care, Yumeng. You don't spend much time with your brother Su in private. How about I give it to you tonight?" Sun Yumeng's face turned red to the back of her ears, and she stammered, "No, no. This is absolutely not possible." Lin Zhuangxuan laughed and teased again, saying, "Why not? Don't you like your elder brother Su? Don't you want to recover your elder brother Su's injuries?" Sun Yumeng said shyly and embarrassedly, "Sister Zhuangxuan, didn't you say that elder brother Su needs that kind of real feelings, which must need a little bit of cultivation? Just, this will miss a lot of links, which will affect the effect. I want to give full play to my own effect, and there can't be any waste." Sun Yumeng was still stuttering before, but when she talked about Su Weifeng, her words became much smoother. Su Weifeng, Lin Zhuangxuan and Zhao Xiaoshu, all three of them suddenly became quiet. Their eyes were staring at Sun Yumeng. "Why are you looking at me like that? Did I say anything wrong?" Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly sighed and said, "Yumeng, I just realized that your love for Weifeng is the purest love, pure without any impurities." Zhao Xiaoshu also nodded seriously and said, "Sister Yumeng, I also feel deeply ashamed now. Compared with my feelings for brother Su, I'm still far worse than you." Chapter 552, Traveling across mountains and rivers to see me. At night, Su Weifeng was still with Lin Zhuangxuan, but perhaps the two had too many opportunities to spend time together, so there was no further progress, and Su Weifeng did not reach that state. At 1 o'clock, Su Weifeng, who was sleeping soundly, was awakened by the ringing of his cell phone. Lin Zhuangxuan in his arms also woke up, and frowned and said, "Who is it? It's so late." Su Weifeng saw the number, and sat up suddenly, and said nervously, "It's Keqing." In the middle of the night, Meng Keqing called, which really made people feel that something bad was going to happen. "Keqing." Su Weifeng quickly answered the phone, and shouted in a panic, "It's me, I'm here." Meng Keqing's voice was playful. "You're here?" Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, then his breathing became rapid, and he said, "Where are you?" "I'm at my home. Do you want to come and steal my fragrance and jade?" Su Weifeng didn't understand at this time that this home referred to the villa next door, and he was even more excited, but when he looked at Lin Zhuangxuan in his arms, he suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Go, I want to sleep." Lin Zhuangxuan turned over and turned out of Su Weifeng's arms. Meng Keqing's voice came from the phone. "Zhuangxuan is with you, right? Otherwise, I'll go to your place." Although Lin Zhuangxuan turned over, she could still hear Su Weifeng's voice on the phone. She was dumbfounded and said, "Sister Keqing, you are too open. If you dare to come, I have no objection." Meng Keqing chuckled and said, "Then I will go over." Lin Zhuangxuan felt that Meng Keqing could really come over, and was immediately shocked. She hurriedly said, "You are not serious, are you?" I don't mind." Meng Keqing laughed very happily. "Okay, Sister Keqing, I admire you. Can you not be so wild?" Lin Zhuangxuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Meng Keqing smiled and said, "What are you afraid of? You are not willing to leave. I can only go over there to take advantage of you." Lin Zhuangxuan hurriedly said, "How can I be reluctant? Go over there quickly. Why are you still in a daze here?" Under Lin Zhuangxuan's urging, Su Weifeng finally jumped over from the rooftop. Just after he passed the rooftop and entered the room on the top floor, a body had already rushed over. Su Weifeng quickly stretched out his arms to catch it. It was none other than Meng Keqing. "Weifeng. Keqing." The two called each other excitedly. Meng Keqing was about to wait for Su Weifeng's kiss excitedly, but Su Weifeng was motionless, just frozen there. Meng Keqing was stunned for a moment, and then a sweet smile appeared on her face. Just after meeting, Su Weifeng had already entered that state. But being held by Su Weifeng like this, Meng Keqing's heart was filled with sweet satisfaction. She nestled in Su Weifeng's arms, not moving at all. It took more than an hour for Su Weifeng's body to return to normal. I'm so sorry, Su Weifeng looked at Meng Keqing's face apologetically. Meng Keqing stretched out her hand to cover Su Weifeng's mouth and said with a smile, I'm very happy. Just a hug just now can trigger your wonderful state, which is enough to show how much you miss me and how much you love me. Su Weifeng was really excited and said, I really didn't expect that you would rush here from thousands of miles away when I said I missed you. I really can't repay your love for me in my lifetime. Meng Keqing blinked and said, then you can come to me when I miss you in the future. No problem. Su Weifeng answered without thinking. With his arms tightened, Su Weifeng kissed Meng Keqing. But after just a few minutes of kissing, Meng Keqing pushed Su Weifeng away and even pulled Su Weifeng's hand away, saying, don't be so excited, let's go and chat. Chat. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, you don't want to chat with me all night, do you? Meng Keqing chuckled and said, yes, I really plan to do that. Su Weifeng looked at Meng Keqing with a strange expression. When Meng Keqing was with him before, she was very bold and quite open. This time, she came all the way here, but why was she so reserved after arriving? Meng Keqing chuckled and said, just a hug has already put you in that state. It seems that I'm still very effective in healing your injuries, so I can't waste this resource of mine. Then she pouted again and continued, in fact, I can't wait to go to bed with you right now, but I feel that it would be a waste. I can't miss this great opportunity for my own happiness. Su Weifeng was even more moved. Just like Sun Yumeng, the more they controlled, the deeper their feelings for Su Weifeng were. Only when their feelings were deep enough would they only think about Su Weifeng's injuries. Su Weifeng certainly understood the importance of recovering from his injuries, and he couldn't waste Meng Keqing's kindness at this time because of his impulse. With a slight smile, he took Meng Keqing's hand and said, that's fine, let's chat until dawn. Meng Keqing said, okay, I really have a lot to say to you. Meng Keqing's villa had been renovated at this time. The two came to the first floor, and Meng Keqing also turned a room on the first floor into a small bar. The wine cabinet was filled with all kinds of wine. Do you like drinking? Su Weifeng was also a little surprised. Meng Keqing chuckled and said, I don't like to drink, but if you have a party or invite friends, you always have to drink a few glasses, so it's only right to prepare some wine. Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, then suddenly came to his senses and said, your place is a supplement to my home. Yes, it's always better for young people to be fashionable when they are together. No wonder you always ask people to come to my house to see it when you are decorating it. You just want to avoid having similarities between this place and mine, and then make some supplements. You really planned this in advance. Meng Keqing chuckled, blinked, and said, yes, people have planned this against you in advance, so the process of approaching you is carefully designed by me. Will you be dissatisfied with me for calculating you like this? How is that possible? I just feel guilty that you are so good to me. Meng Keqing immediately changed the subject and said, you bet 1 billion yuan in this bet, which is a bit too big. Su Weifeng was still quite annoyed when he thought of Jin Yuhu and said, I told him long ago that if he wants to compete with me, then he should face me directly. If he dares to touch my friends and family, then I will definitely make him pay a price he cannot afford. Well said, I like your domineering attitude. Meng Keqing's eyes were full of admiration, and then she said fiercely, his roots are the Jin family, so let's cut off his roots and leave him no room for recovery. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 553. This is a character. That night, Su Weifeng and Meng Keqing really just sat in the bar, drinking red wine and chatting. They didn't feel lonely at all, as if they had countless things to say to each other. But at about 5 in the morning, Meng Keqing said, I have to go. You have to go back. Su Weifeng's eyes suddenly became a little sour. Meng Keqing said mischievously, yeah, I have a lot of things to do over there. I just sneaked out to see you. I have to go back quickly, otherwise people will find out that I'm running away. After all this trouble, Meng Keqing was only able to spend more than 3 hours with Su Weifeng, which made Su Weifeng really excited. He hugged Meng Keqing tightly with both arms. Meng Keqing quickly pushed him away and said, calm down, I can feel that your mood has changed. It seems that you are about to enter that state again, but I have to go back now. I can only delay you once. Su Weifeng took a deep breath and said, that's not this time. You still have to do your work. Go back quickly. Meng Keqing nodded, kissed Su Weifeng on the lips like a dragonfly touching the water, and then turned and walked out quickly. Several people immediately gathered on the first floor and took Meng Keqing away. Su Weifeng stood at the door of the villa for a long time without moving. Meng Keqing really had a deep affection for him like the sea. For any man, it is a great happiness to be able to obtain the deep affection of such an outstanding woman. When he returned home, there was actually a person sitting on the sofa in the living room, which also scared Su Weifeng. Xian, why are you here? Su Weifeng went over and sat next to her. Xian said faintly, I can't sleep, so I'm sitting here. Are you feeling uncomfortable again? Su Weifeng asked with concern. Xian sighed and said, a little, but not that serious. At that time, I strongly requested to go with you, and in front of Sister Zhuangxuan and the others. I just thought that, if I went with you, it would cause you trouble, and I shouldn't do that. But if I didn't go with you, I was afraid that I couldn't stand it here. I was really conflicted. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, it's up to you to decide. If you are not afraid of hard work, then you can go with me. I can still guarantee to treat you every night. If you can hold on for a month, I will wait for me to come back and treat you again. I don't think there will be any problems. Xian bit her lip and said, if I really go, will it cause you a lot of trouble? Su Weifeng did not deny it and said, it's okay. I will definitely be more comfortable without you, but it won't affect you. That's not the case. Xian raised her head suddenly and said, in that case, I still want to go with Brother Su. Then go, but you have to be prepared to endure hardships. We may have to live in the wild for half a month, which is very hard. Xian said firmly, I'm not afraid. I feel that nothing can be more terrifying than those things in my mind. Su Weifeng patted Xian on the shoulder and said, just be prepared. I'm going to exercise now. After dinner, Xian returned to the room, and Lin Zhuangxuan blinked at Su Weifeng and said, you came back so early. Last night. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, we chatted for a few hours last night, and she left at 5 in the morning. Lin Zhuangxuan widened her eyes and said, come here in the middle of the night and leave early in the morning? Oh my, Meng Keqing is really not afraid of trouble just to see you. The smile on Su Weifeng's face became even brighter. He took out the key and said, this is the key to Keqing's house. Her house will belong to us from now on. Lin Zhuangxuan curled her lips and said, I knew it would be like this earlier, but this is not bad. I can go there to play later. I still like her decoration style. The decoration here was actually mainly the idea of Su Weifeng's mother Shenji. Even though she had tried her best to take care of the feelings of young people, after all, her age was there, and she had a subconscious preconceived idea of what she liked. So the decoration here is actually still a traditional style, or a more popular style, without much novelty. There was still some time, so Su Weifeng and his friends went directly to Meng Keqing's villa to take a good look. For Su Weifeng, he didn't have too much trouble with the bet with Jin Yuhu. After the arrangement was completed, the next step was to take Feng Bao to train. However, Jin Yuhu's Jin family was mobilized because of this matter. After a detailed investigation, several main figures of the Jin family gathered together. Although the old man of the Jin family is over 80 years old, he is still majestic. He is dressed in a tank suit and has a sturdy body. He doesn't look old at all. When he was young, the old man was a martial artist. In those special times, he got special opportunities. With his skills, he built a big Jin family. Later, as the country's legal system improved, it became increasingly difficult to make money through illegal activities. The old man was also very smart and started doing serious business directly. With his previous foundation and connections, the business went smoothly. The Jin family flourished in all aspects. More than 10 years ago, it had become the #1 family in Yangcheng. For many years, no family had been able to shake its foundation. Jin Chengfeng, the eldest of the Jin family and Jin Yuhu's father, said in a deep voice, "Father, I have investigated Feng Baoer in detail. From elementary school to high school, although she had good physical fitness, she had not received any training in fighting or kung fu. After entering the police academy, she began to receive basic training in the police academy. She performed well in the police academy, especially in mixed martial arts. Her progress was very fast. Among the students of the same class, she, a girl, could actually rank in the top 20. This is indeed a very good result. After entering the public security system, she was also a good master in the police force, but she was still just in the police force. Although she had made several contributions, the opponents she met were not powerful." The old man narrowed his eyes and said, "That alone is not a concern at all." Jin Yu also frowned and said, "When I fought with her, she obviously tried her best. It is impossible for her to hide it. Her level is much worse than mine. I can easily defeat her even with one hand." Jin Chengfeng frowned and said, "Su Weifeng's origins are somewhat mysterious. He came from a special forces unit. Normally, he is a character. After returning to Yangcheng, he first had a close relationship with the Shu family, and then established a relationship with the ZHU family in the provincial capital. The Wei family provoked him, and he actually joined forces with the ZHU and Shu families to destroy the Wei family. The ZHU and Shu families actually gave him 25% of the profits, which shows how much the ZHU and Shu families valued him." The old man of the Jin family laughed and said, "He is a character, Yuhu. This may be your best touchstone. If you defeat him, you can truly take charge of the Jin family." Chapter 554. It's impossible to win. "Father, do you think we should accept this bet or not?" Jin Chengfeng frowned and asked cautiously. The old man of the Jin family turned his gaze to Jin Yuhu and said slowly, "What do you think, Yuhu?" Jin Yuhu's eyes flashed with a gleam at this time, and he said, "I have to accept this matter, whether I accept it or not." Jin Chengfeng immediately said, "The other party is so sure of the bet of 1 billion yuan, and now this matter has been widely spread. The Shu family and the ZHU family have also opened a bet, betting on Feng Bao's victory. They seem to have a way to win." Jin Yuhu straightened his chest and said loudly, "In fighting, unless the gap in strength is too large, it is impossible to be 100% sure. Their propaganda is undoubtedly making me lose confidence and dare not accept their challenge. If I really don't accept it, I will never be able to raise my head in Yangcheng for the rest of my life, and our Jin family's prestige will also be greatly reduced. So I must accept this bet." Jin Chengfeng said again, $1 billion. This is not a small amount. If we lose, our Jin family can't afford such a big loss, right? Jin Yuhu said, "Father, considering the worst for everything will indeed make our Jin family invincible, but our Jin family can only maintain the current strength, while others are constantly improving, just like the Shu family now. They have already posed enough threat to us. In another year or two, their strength will exceed ours. If they attack us, then our Jin family will not be able to fight back, and it will be difficult for us to gain a foothold in Yangcheng in the future." After a pause, Jin Yuhu said, "Our Jin family must not be inferior to others. Our Jin family must not only dominate Yangcheng, but also occupy an important position in the entire province. Then we must be proactive and do things that we did not dare to do before, just like this bet. You only think about failure, but what if I win? Then our Jin family will not only have an extra $1 billion, but also hit the Shu family and the ZHU family. With the help of the Liu family in the provincial capital, we will definitely have enough strength even in the provincial capital." "Well said." The old man of the Jin family slapped the table domineeringly and praised loudly. Jin Yuhu said confidently, "Grandpa, don't worry, I won't underestimate Feng Baoer. I will pay close attention to their actions and know her progress at any time. I will not slack off and will improve my strength." She wants to improve. So do I. How can we make up for the gap between us? The old man of the Jin family laughed and said, not bad, Yoo-hoo. Just let it go and do it. Yes. Jin Yoo-hoo agreed and strode out. The old man's sons were a little worried at this time. They were used to this kind of stability and status in Yangcheng, and really didn't want to take any risks. But the old man set the tone for this matter, and they had no way to object. 3 days later, those who wanted to come to the gym to exercise were told that it was temporarily closed today, and some well-dressed people who seemed to have a good background came here one after another. Several young people greeted the guests enthusiastically, but they were not the owners of the gym, but Zhu Jianbin, Xu Lingling, Zheng Yulong, Zhao Minggyang and others. Xu Lingling greeted a man in his 50s and said with a smile, "Isn't this Uncle Lee? How about it? Are you interested in playing? How do we play?" Uncle Lee asked Xu Lingling with a smile. Xu Lingling said with a smile, "We start with 10 million. 10 million is not too little for us, and a few 100 million is not too much for us. Uncle Lee, you can do whatever you want." In this situation, Zhu Jianbin and his friends were the same. When they met the representatives of each family, they would come forward to sell. Although everyone had been notified in advance that the Zhu and Xu families were going to open a handicap, they did not expect that the handicap would be so large. The minimum of 10 million was not capped. If each of these families invested a little, it would definitely not be a small amount, and it might even bankrupt the Zhu and Xu families. Naturally, no one really went to buy the handicap at this time, because the real owner, the Jin family, had not arrived yet. Many families gathered together at this time and began to discuss this matter. The Zhu family and the Xu family are going to confront the Jin family and the Liu family, but we don't know what's going on. Most of the families from the provincial capital didn't know the situation yet, so they asked the local families in Yangcheng. Those who knew the ins and outs of the matter told the story roughly. This is a matter caused by a man named Su Weifeng. This guy's a big shot. He can get the support of the Zhu family and the Xu family. That's right, $1 billion. Even if it's me, I don't dare to say it out loud. I can't say it out loud. Even if our family is added together, we don't have so many assets. The big families in the provincial capital are naturally strong, but some small families in Yangcheng are not very strong. $1 billion is indeed not something they can afford. And Su Weifeng actually has such strength, but many people don't know it, which makes people feel puzzled. Of course, everyone began to study the two people who made the bet. Everyone has heard about Jin Yoo-hoo's strength to some extent, and knows that this kid is very powerful now. As for Feng Bao's information, it was too easy for these family members to find out. After a while, everyone got the most detailed information about Feng Bao. These people knew about the kung fu bet before they came, so they brought masters from their families. At this time, when the masters analyzed it, they obviously determined that Jin Yoo-hoo would win, and Feng Bao had no chance of winning at all. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment. Is Su Weifeng crazy? Su Weifeng is crazy, but the Zhu family and the Xu family are also crazy? Let such a little girl, who was just seriously injured by Jin Yoo-hoo, want to beat Jin Yoo-hoo in a month? Is this a joke? Or is it a joke? When everyone was almost here, the people of the Jin family came late. Jin Yoo-hoo walked in the middle, and there were also the elders of the Jin family. At the same time, there was another group of people who came with them, that is, the Liu family and the provincial capital, the big family that can compete with the Zhu family. But Su Weifeng and Feng Bao have not appeared yet. Everyone is really looking forward to seeing who these two people are, and what kind of outstanding people they are who can compete with a behemoth like the Jin family. Chapter 555. Everything is under control. Su Weifeng and Feng Bao finally showed up. Both of them were dressed in casual clothes, but the man was handsome and the woman was not only beautiful, but also had a hot body, which was indeed quite eye-catching. Su Weifeng looked calm, but Feng Bao was shocked. She had been recuperating at home for the past 2 days, and only received a call from Su Weifeng today, asking her to go to the gym. But there were so many people here. As a criminal policeman, he naturally had some knowledge of some important figures in Yangcheng. Many of them were actually important figures in Yangcheng, and everyone's eyes were all focused on her. Even though she was a policeman with a strong mental quality, she was still scared by being looked at. What's going on? Why are there so many big shots? Feng Bao asked in a low voice. A bet of $1 billion US. How can I take it out by myself? I need to find some helpers. The other party is the Jin family, so there are naturally many people who want to watch the fun. So there are so many people. Feng Bao's mouth twitched secretly. This really made her a little panicked, but after her eyes found Jin Yuhu, a strong fire of hatred suddenly appeared in her eyes. Jin Yuhu laughed loudly and said directly, "Sister, last time I saw that you had a good figure, I didn't want to do it, because I was afraid of hurting your breasts. If you want to compete with me again, I will not show mercy." Feng Bao became even angrier, but she also knew that there was no point in talking now. She just sneered and said, "You can beat me once, but it doesn't mean you can beat me forever. Don't overestimate your ability." Jin Yuhu sneered, looked at Su Weifeng, and said, "Since you proposed a bet, I, Jin Yuhu, have no reason to refuse, but are you ready for the $1 billion bet?" Su Weifeng smiled faintly and said, "Of course I'm ready." Jin Yuhu snorted and said, "You are ready. If you say you are ready, what do you have to prove it?" ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling stood up at this time. ZHU Xiaoxuan said, "Our ZHU family and Xu family are willing to bear Su Weifeng's bet. If we lose this game, our ZHU family and Xu family will naturally honor the bet." Xu Lingling snorted and said, "Don't worry, we are not like you, who would refuse to pay even a bet of 100 million. It's just $1 billion US. We dare to bet, so we can afford to lose. If we really lose, we will give it to you, even if we sell everything we have." The ZHU family and the Xu family came out to stand in line, which made everyone look at Su Weifeng again. $1 billion US. This kind of cooperation is not an ordinary cooperation. This is simply betting the future of the two families on Su Weifeng and Feng Bao's fight. The ZHU family and the Xu family are too bold. In addition, Xu Lingling's words made some people a little confused, but someone immediately revealed the whole story. The last time Su Weifeng and Jin Yuhu bet $100 million US, Jin Yuhu lost, and actually took the money from Zimbabwe to refuse to pay. This matter bullied ordinary people, which might make Jin Yuhu look humorous, but when Su Weifeng and Jin Yuhu stood on the same level, it seemed that Jin Yuhu was tasteless. Jin Yuhu laughed and said, "This is no trivial matter. Although you are from two different families, can you really represent the ZHU family and the Xu family? If when the time comes, the elders of your two families say that this is the young people's nonsense, I can't force you to take you away, right?" This time, no one from the ZHU family and the Xu family showed up. The reason was very simple. It was to bring Su Weifeng closer to ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling. The appearance of the elders would instead affect the importance of ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling. ZHU Xiaoxuan snorted and said, "I have been fully authorized by the ZHU family. I can fully represent the ZHU family on this matter. If you, Jin Yuhu, do not have such ability, then you can let the elders of your Jin family speak out." Xu Lingling raised her neck and said, "There are so many elders from big families here, including the province and the city. We dare not use our family's reputation to make a fuss. No matter how much money we have, we can't buy back our family's reputation. Of course, your Jin family may not care, or you, Jin Yuhu, can't make this decision." Jin Yuhu let the two women hold back his words, and his face was a little ugly. He suddenly realized that he had done a stupid thing. He actually quarreled with women, and he was fighting one against two. Jin Yuhu wisely ignored the two and cast his eyes directly at Su Weifeng, saying, "Su Weifeng, since you want to bet with me, then we have to make everything clear." Su Weifeng said lightly, "Speak. You tell me your request first." Jin Yuhu shook his hand and put his hands behind his back. Su Weifeng answered very concisely, "I don't have any requirements." Jin Yuhu was choked, and his face twitched. Then he slowly said, "Are you sure you want Feng Bao to fight me?" "Yes." "Are you sure the time for the competition is 1 month later, that is, October 28th? "Yes." "The location is also here?" "Okay." Every time Jin Yuhu asked a question, his chest felt more blocked. He knew very well that the other party did not ask for anything, but he asked so many requirements. He had already lost in terms of temperament, which was definitely a very embarrassing thing. But in this matter, Su Weifeng's calmness and the confidence of the ZHU family and the Shu family made him feel a little uneasy, so he had to point out the means that the other party could use in advance. That's hand-to-hand combat, without restrictions. Su Weifeng's eyes suddenly became sharp, and he said, of course, Feng Baoer must get back the humiliation she suffered. If there are restrictions, then you have it easy. Feng Baoer gritted her teeth and said, I must get it back 10 times or 100 times. The responses of Su Weifeng and Feng Baoer made Jin Yuhe feel much more comfortable. He laughed and said, in this case, then I have no problem. Let's settle this matter. Su Weifeng said lightly, very good, then see you here on October 28th. Jin Yuhe sneered and said, yes, I'm looking forward to this day too. By then, I will not only deal with your girl, but also make money from you. Su Weifeng sneered in return, and left with Feng Baoer. ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling were left to do the rest. ZHU Jianben immediately shouted at the top of his voice, come on, everyone. I guess you all have a certain understanding of the strength of both sides now. The odds are open now. If anyone wants to play, then come and invest. Don't be polite. The more you invest, the more you earn, and the less you invest, the less you earn. I bet on Jin Yuhe to win. $500 million. A man's voice suddenly rang out loudly, and everyone quieted down at once. Chapter 556, Fight to the Death. Everyone turned their eyes to this person. $500 million. This is definitely a big deal. And the person who said this was a member of the Liu family in the provincial capital, Liu Zhangjiang, the second generation of the Liu family. Liu Zhangjiang looked at ZHU Xiaoxuan and said again, $500 million. Do you dare to take it? ZHU Xiaoxuan smiled and said, Uncle Liu, you are joking. Since our ZHU family dares to open this market, we dare to take it. Liu Zhangjiang snorted and said, although your ZHU family's industry is huge, if there are more such sums of money, I'm afraid you can't afford it. ZHU Xiaoxuan chuckled and said, Uncle Liu is bold, but I don't think other families will play so big, right? Niece, you are wrong. Business is not good recently. There are too many risks in doing anything. I feel that this is a good opportunity to make money, so I also plan to buy $500 million and also buy Jin Yuhe. Not bad. I also want to join in the fun, but I don't have as much courage as you. I'll play small, $400 million. Come on. I'll also gather a few $100 million to play, and $400 million too. In just a moment, 6 families expressed their opinions, totaling $2.4 billion. Everyone's face changed. $2.4 billion. That is about 16 billion. Even a provincial family like the ZHU family, I'm afraid that they cannot come up with it. Oh, no, it should be said that, even if their assets are more than this money, it is not much more. These few families are almost going to swallow up the ZHU family. ZHU Xiaoxuan and ZHU Jianben's faces also changed. ZHU Xiaoxuan forced a smile and said, uncles, are you sure you really want to play such a big game? Liu Zhangjiang laughed and said, what's the matter? Niece doesn't want to accept it? ZHU Xiaoxuan gritted his teeth and said, uncles, do you want to divide up our ZHU family directly? That's meaningless. If you want to open the market, then you will naturally allow us to place bets. Of course, if your ZHU family is afraid, you can refuse to accept it. The families in the provincial capital are all playing, so we can't not play. Come on, I'll invest $500 million, but we won't play in US dollars. Yes, I'll invest $500 million too. Not long after, the Shu family also received a bet of more than $4 billion. Then everyone stared at the ZHU family and the Shu family. These people had discussed it in advance and made an appointment with the Jin family and the Liu family to target the ZHU family and the Shu family. The Jin family and the Liu family are both old families with many years of history. In terms of their relationship with other families, they are incomparable to the Shu family and the ZHU family. Seeing that ZHU Xiaoxuan did not answer, Liu Zhangjiang said with a smile, if you can't accept this bet, then just treat it as a joke and let it go now. This is clearly a provocation. ZHU Xiaoxuan took a deep breath and said, since you uncles are interested, how can we spoil your interest? Moreover, we have opened the bet. If we don't accept it, wouldn't it be a joke for everyone to see our ZHU family and the Shu family? So, we accept it. Are you sure? Liu Zhangguang narrowed his eyes. ZHU Xiaoxuan shook his head a little crazy and said, yes, we accept it. If you win, it's just an extra sum of money, which can kill my ZHU family directly, but if we win, the strength of our ZHU family will double instantly. From now on, the ZHU family will be the only one in the provincial capital. Why don't we accept it? ZHU Xiaoxuan's words are right. With so much money, no family can come up with cash. Whoever cashes out in the end, they have to cash out with asset shares. So this is not just a matter of doubling the money, but a real increase in strength. Liu Zhangguang laughed and said, in this case, words are not enough, so it's better to sign a written agreement. ZHU Xiaoxuan's face changed again, and the corner of his mouth twitched, and he said, Uncle Liu, you are very well prepared. Liu Zhangguang smiled faintly and said, you want to use this method to build momentum for that kid, and want to undermine Yuhu's confidence, so I naturally can't let you do what you want. ZHU Jianbin frowned and said, sister, this. ZHU Xiaoxuan waved his hand to interrupt ZHU Jianbin and said, no need to say, since I have this power, then I will bet on the fortune of the ZHU family. I accept it. Xu Lingling also gritted her teeth and said, if the ZHU family dares to accept it, then my Shu family dares to accept it too. Come on. This kind of simple bet is easy to sign with a written agreement, and soon everyone was ready. After all the documents were signed, many other people came to join in the fun, but they invested less, about 10 or 20 million, just to show their appreciation. Some people even bet on Feng Bao to win. These people are naturally on good terms with the ZHU and Shu families, but at this moment, they dare not be on the same boat with the Shu and ZHU families. After all, this is an event that involves the entire family. After everyone dispersed, many people immediately began to pay attention to Feng Bao's movements. It's very simple. Feng Bao's current strength is definitely not enough to beat Jin Yuhu. In this short month, they all want to see how Feng Bao will improve her strength. But soon everyone couldn't find Feng Bao anymore. Not only could they not find Feng Bao, but even Su Weifeng disappeared. It seemed that these two people disappeared in Yangcheng all of a sudden. These big families have a lot of ways to investigate people. If they want to find out the whereabouts of a person, normally, it should be no problem. But even with so many big families, they just can't find any trace of Su Weifeng and Feng Bao. In fact, Su Weifeng not only took Feng Bao with him, but also took He Xian with him. If he wanted to hide his identity, even agents from other countries could hide it. How could the strength of these families be comparable to that of the country's special departments? Naturally, they could not find his trace. 2 days later, they had arrived at the African savannah. Su Weifeng directly bought a large off-road jeep and prepared enough things for half a month in the car. The savannah was endless. It was neither the dry season nor the rainy season. The temperature was more than 30 degrees. Although it was hot, it was the most suitable climate for the savannah. Soon, you can see all kinds of animals, wildebeests grazing leisurely, zebras frolicking, and giraffes with long necks. He Xian's mood at this time was indescribably good, and she was still very excited. She looked around with shining eyes, and every time she saw a new small animal, she would let out a cry of joy. Although Feng Bao was also very curious about the scenery here, she was in a state of mind, and was not in the mood to appreciate it. She said, Master, why don't you help me improve? Although Su Weifeng did not agree, Feng Bao really called him Master. At this time, Su Weifeng said lightly, it's about to start. Chapter 557 Grassland Training. It's about to start. That's great. Feng Bao shouted excitedly. Su Weifeng pointed at the zebras in front and said, go and catch a little zebra. Oh. Feng Bao agreed and picked up the gun. If you come to the African savannah, you must bring a gun. It's not for hunting, but also for self-protection. Feng Bao thought Su Weifeng wanted her to hunt, so she didn't hesitate. Put down the gun. Su Weifeng said lightly. No need for a gun. Feng Bao's mouth twitched, but thinking that zebras are herbivores, if you don't need a gun, then a knife will do, so she directly pulled out a dagger. Su Weifeng snorted and said, I'll ask you to catch one with your bare hands. Bare hands. Feng Bao's mouth twitched, but she immediately straightened her chest and said, okay, I will definitely not let the master down. Then she jumped out of the car and slowly walked towards the small group of zebras. However, zebras are very vigilant animals. When Feng Bao was still 20 to 30 meters away from the zebras, they had already trotted away. Feng Bao turned around and said to Su Weifeng angrily, they are quite vigilant. I will be more careful this time. Su Weifeng did not answer, but just drove the car and kept a certain distance from Feng Bao. The group of zebras did not run far. Feeling no threat, they started to eat grass and play again. Feng Bao was more careful this time. She bent down and tried to hide her body in the thatch. This time she got within 15 meters, but the zebra still found her and trotted away from her. After doing this several times, Feng Bao slowly summed up some tips. She had to approach against the wind, otherwise the smell on her body might be discovered by the other party. Then, you have to move very lightly, especially when you are close to the zebra. You have to be extremely careful with every step you take. Even the sound of breaking a grass root may scare the zebra away. The hearing of these animals is much better than that of humans. Finally, you have to be able to hide your whereabouts. You have to use weeds to hide yourself. When the zebra looks at you, you have to be motionless. When these animals see something motionless, they generally don't regard it as a danger. Until dark, Feng Bao didn't pull a single hair of the zebra. The only best time was when she was within 5 meters of the zebra. After setting up the tent, Feng Bao almost collapsed on the ground after getting in. His movements didn't seem to be very intense, but under the scorching sun, and with all kinds of mental tension, they were no worse than a lot of physical exercise. Su Weifeng kicked her directly and said, sit up and do 2 more training sessions. Feng Bao didn't complain at this time. She sat up immediately and started doing it in the tent. He Xian looked at Feng Bao's gnashing teeth and insisting, and opened her mouth, but didn't say much. She knew very well that this was a training for Feng Bao, not a time for her to be kind. After the training, Feng Bao could eat. While eating, Feng Bao asked, Master, is this training to train my reaction ability? Su Weifeng shook his head and said, no, this is to train your ability to become a hunter. What does this mean? Feng Bao was a little puzzled. Su Weifeng said calmly, when you go hunting, as long as your timing is a little wrong, you will not succeed. The same is true when fighting. Only if you can really grasp that fleeting opportunity can you win. At the same time, this is also training your ability to endure. Impulsiveness cannot solve any problems. Feng Bao nodded repeatedly and said, yes, master, you are right. Sometimes I'm too impulsive, and I don't wait for the best time before I take action. However, the biggest difference between me and Jinyu who now is strength. Isn't this what I need to improve the most? Su Weifeng snorted and said, don't be anxious, and don't be too ambitious. Just do whatever I tell you to do. Yes, I will listen to master. Although Feng Bao put forward her own ideas, she would execute them without hesitation if Su Weifeng said so. After eating and resting for only half an hour, Su Weifeng began to torture Feng Bao. At least Feng Bao thought so, and He Xian thought so too. Su Weifeng was really vicious to Feng Bao. Her arms and legs were broken so badly that He Xian felt like he could tear them off at any time. Especially when she heard Feng Bao's screams like a pig being slaughtered. He Xian's scalp was tingling. But Su Weifeng did not hesitate at all until the end. Feng Bao was completely paralyzed at this time, like a pile of mud lying on the mat of the tent, unable to move. If it weren't for the heavy breathing, He Xian would have thought that Feng Bao was killed by Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng dealt with Feng Bao, and then treated He Xian, and then rested. In a place like this, the difference between men and women is useless. The wild beasts outside may jump out at any time, and Su Weifeng would not let the two of them sleep alone in the tent. Even if they were going to the toilet, Su Weifeng had to follow them. It was okay for herbivores, but for carnivores, especially lions and leopards, they were very good at hiding. If they were a little further away, Su Weifeng could not guarantee that he could find them in advance. Su Weifeng brought them here, so he had to be responsible for their safety. The next morning, it was a little after 4 o'clock, and it was already light. Su Weifeng called Feng Bao directly. Feng Bao felt so uncomfortable that she felt like her arms and legs were about to break, but she had to bite the bullet and crawl up. He Xian slept very soundly last night. The three of them slept in the same tent, so she could be next to Su Weifeng. An indescribable sense of security lingered around her. She was no longer tormented by the smell in her head, and she didn't have any nightmares. She slept until Su Weifeng woke up. Get up, wash, go to the toilet, and eat. It will take half an hour in total. If you are 1 minute late, you will not be allowed to eat at noon. Yes. Feng Bao jumped up immediately. Even though she was gritting her teeth in pain, she still cleaned herself up quickly. He Xian was affected by Feng Bao's atmosphere and subconsciously cleaned up quickly. Then the two of them went to the toilet together. At this time, even carnivores have basically stopped their activities, so it is a rare safe time. When Feng Bao and He Xian came back to eat, they also wolfed down their food. Feng Bao grinned while eating. Why are you in such a hurry? You don't train either. He Xian was stunned for a moment, then bit her lip and said, I want to try it too. I don't want to be a burden. Chapter 558 Progress. Su Weifeng looked at her and said, it's fine if you want to train, but you don't have to do it like her. He Xian said happily, do you agree? Su Weifeng said, well, your body is too weak. Exercising can improve your physical fitness, which is also very beneficial to your illness. He Xian nodded repeatedly and said, okay, then I'll listen to you. After dinner, Su Weifeng asked Feng Bao to start running, and Su Weifeng followed her. Not only was Feng Bao training, but he could also resume training at the same time. He Xian also ran for a few minutes. She usually lacked exercise, and these few minutes had already made her gasp for breath. Su Weifeng directly carried her on his back, and then ran with Feng Bao. When Feng Bao started running, she felt that the muscles and bones in her legs were about to break, but after running for more than 10 minutes, the pain in her arms and legs was getting weaker and weaker, and she was running more and more easily. She immediately knew that this must be the effect of Su Weifeng's torture on her last night. Hurry. Speed up, this speed is too slow. Su Weifeng urged Feng Bao from the side. Feng Bao ran hard and felt that she had reached her limit, but Su Weifeng, who was carrying a person on his back, looked relaxed and comfortable. She knew that Su Weifeng was very strong, but she had no idea of it. She had only seen the tip of the iceberg. She really admired him. The ability to run under such a load definitely required strong enough leg strength. Among all the people she knew, no one else had this ability. This was the first time she saw it. After running for half an hour, Feng Bao's physical strength reached its limit, and Su Weifeng took the exhausted Feng Bao back to the car. Although they ran for a long time, they did not run far from the car. They basically ran around the car. Feng Bao spread out her limbs without any image, and said, Master, you carried a person on your back, and ran for such a long time, but you didn't even blush or get out of breath. This is amazing. Su Weifeng said lightly, a warrior must have strong enough physical fitness. When encountering an opponent of equal strength, the one with stronger physical fitness will win in the end. Well, I will persist. Feng Bao straightened her chest immediately. Su Weifeng nodded and said, well, then I will help you stretch your muscles now. Oh my god, another torture, come on. Feng Bao screamed. After another round of torture, Su Weifeng drove Feng Bao out of the car and asked her to practice catching zebras again. Feng Bao made great progress that day. She could get close to zebras almost every time in the afternoon. However, zebras are animals with extremely fast reaction speed. When she reached out her hand, the pony still escaped. And there was another time when the leader of the zebras fought back strongly, chasing Feng Bao and kicking her. If Feng Bao hadn't reacted quickly, she might have been killed by the zebras. He Xian's heart almost jumped out of her chest when she saw this. It took her a while to recover. She looked at Su Weifeng, frowned and said, Brother Su, isn't this too dangerous? It's okay, she won't lose her life. Su Weifeng said expressionlessly. But, that's too dangerous, why don't you save her? Su Weifeng snorted and said, when a person is in danger, there will be someone to save him, and he will not have the ability to deal with crisis. Flowers in a greenhouse will never bloom the most brilliantly. If a person does not experience danger, she will never grow up. Turning his head to look at He Xian, Su Weifeng said again, Feng Bao wants to be a real warrior. If she is not injured here, she may die in the future when performing a mission. He Xian opened her mouth and was speechless. Feng Bao limped back at this time, gnashing her teeth and said, Master, zebras actually bite people. Su Weifeng said lightly, of course, any creature will show its strongest fighting power when it senses danger. Not to mention biting you, it may even bite off your arm and swallow it. Feng Bao grinned and said, this really subverts my impression of zebras. The zebras in the zoo are not that fierce. Su Weifeng nodded and said, of course, people living in the city will never know how dangerous it is outside. They have long lost their wildness. Feng Bao smiled and said, I will let my wildness rekindle in me. Feng Bao is indeed a ruthless person. After Su Weifeng helped her deal with the skin injuries, she went to harass the group of zebras again. Su Weifeng also admired Feng Bao's persistent and unyielding spirit. In the next few days, Su Weifeng asked Feng Bao to do such things. After Feng Bao first took a little zebra out of the herd, she was chased by the zebra leader and ran away with her head in her arms. Soon, she could easily dodge the pursuit of zebras while holding a little zebra. He Xian also followed the training these days. At first, it was just simple training, but after 2 days, she made rapid progress and her physical fitness was greatly improved. This surprised Su Weifeng. After a careful analysis, he came to a conclusion that it was the breath in He Xian's body that helped her a lot during her training. To put it simply, He Xian now has true energy in her body, just like a congenital master. If this breath is used by her, it will be of great help to her. If the breath is messed up by itself, it will hurt her. Su Weifeng had always thought about removing this breath from her body, but now, he has a new idea, which is to help He Xian, so that she can control this breath herself. Then she may become a good master in the future. Su Weifeng immediately taught her a method to control her breath. This method was very simple, but Feng Bao could not practice it, because she did not have this thing in her body. After a week, Feng Bao's skin turned into a wheat color, but it was shiny, and every time her arms and legs moved, they were full of explosive power. In just 1 week, Feng Bao not only strengthened his physical fitness, but also improved his reaction speed by an unknown amount. The most important thing is that when facing prey, he is more like a hunter, and knows how to seize the best opportunity. Of course, this is also related to Su Weifeng's daily conditioning for her. Feng Bao did not have true Qi in her body, so Su Weifeng used his true Qi to help her comb the meridians in her body every time, which made Feng Bao's physique undergo earth-shaking changes. Chapter 559 Water Anaconda. A week passed quickly, and the 3 of them were now like wild men. In the evening, Su Weifeng found a small river bay and stopped the car. Take a half-day break today. Feng Bao and He Xian both shouted excitedly. Not only was Feng Bao exhausted this week, but even He Xian had tried her best. Feng Bao saw the water bay in the car and shouted excitedly, I want to take a shower. He Xian's eyes lit up. For a girl, not taking a shower for a few days is absolutely uncomfortable. The habit of changing clothes every day is even more impossible here. The clothes they wear have been worn for several days. Su Weifeng was also a little tempted and said, wait a minute, see if there is any danger. Places with water are still very attractive to herbivores. And where there are herbivores, there are naturally carnivores. After a while, Su Weifeng saw several lions and a group of wild dogs visiting here, and 2 hunting incidents occurred. These were not what he was worried about. After a fire, these small animals would just go away. Su Weifeng was worried about the water. After observing for a while, there were no crocodiles attacking in the water. But Su Weifeng was still worried, so he asked Feng Bao to catch a little wildebeest and then threw it into the middle of the pool. The little wildebeest immediately swam hard to the shore, but Su Weifeng drove it back into the water when it was about to swim. After 2 times, the little wildebeest climbed onto the shore again, and Su Weifeng did not stop it. In the African savanna, the 2 most dangerous creatures in the water are crocodiles and piranhas, which are obviously not here. Okay, the water is still safe. Let's light a fire first to ensure the safety of the shore. Su Weifeng gave an order, and soon a fire was lit. The three of them first roasted some meat to eat. The harder the training, the more nutrition you need to keep up. Fortunately, meat is the most abundant thing here. Of course, Su Weifeng also had to choose animals that were not protected here to catch. He still had this basic morality. After dinner, Su Weifeng was still a little worried and was the first to go into the water. The pool was not deep, just a little over 1 meter. He stood in the water, and it was only up to his waist. However, the water was still very clear, and he could see that it was indeed safe in the water. Okay, come down. Su Weifeng called out. Feng Bao and He Xian jumped down quickly, and the splashing water made Su Weifeng's face. Feng Bao sat down in the water directly, and the water did not cover her head. Then she showed her head again, and her hands were scrambling in the water for a while, and then she lifted up some clothes and threw them hard on the shore. For a week, the three of them lived together, eating, drinking, defecating, urinating, and sleeping together. Especially when sleeping together, they were too tired to pay attention to where their arms and legs were. So often, when Su Weifeng woke up in the morning, he was already hugged by the two of them like a meat sandwich, and Su Weifeng didn't know whose body he was on. And when they went to the toilet, there was always danger on the prairie, and even if Su Weifeng didn't look, he had to stay 2 or 3 meters away from them. At first Feng Bao and He Xian felt embarrassed, but after a few days, they basically didn't take it seriously. So now they are getting more and more casual. Feng Bao did this, and so did He Xian, but He Xian washed all her clothes in the water first, washed herself well, and then put on her underwear before getting up. After Feng Bao finished washing herself, she smiled and said, "Master, please throw my clothes down again. I was too excited just now and now I have nothing to wear." Su Weifeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He went ashore, picked out her clothes, and threw them down again. Feng Bao squatted down to wash clothes, and when she was about to put on her clothes, she suddenly rushed up and quickly fell into the water. The water in the pool suddenly rolled. Su Weifeng saw a blue-black python wrapping around Feng Bao at a glance. He Xian screamed in fear, and while running to the shore, she shouted to Su Weifeng, "Brother Su, snake, what a big snake." Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes, pulled out a dagger, and threw it directly, which landed in Feng Bao's right hand. Then he shouted, "If you don't want to be eaten by it, kill it." He Xian's eyes widened immediately, and she said anxiously, "Brother Su, you." Su Weifeng snorted and said, "It's just a snake. It has a weapon in its hand, and it was swallowed. That can only be too stupid." He Xian stamped her feet anxiously, but seeing that Su Weifeng had no intention of taking action at all, she could only worry and cheer Feng Bao loudly on the side. Feng Bao's shoulder was bitten by the python, and the python's body quickly wrapped around her. Her left arm was also directly entangled in it, but fortunately there was still a right arm exposed outside, and her right hand also caught the dagger thrown by Su Weifeng at this time. The python was wrapped around her, and the huge force made Feng Bao feel breathless in just a moment. Her ribs were so tight that they seemed to pierce into her internal organs. At this time, she dared not hesitate at all, and stabbed the dagger in her hand fiercely at the python. The dagger was extremely sharp, and pierced into the body of the python in an instant. The python felt pain, but it did not relax at this time, but tightened it even more. Moreover, the muscles of the python were tense, and even the skin and flesh were extremely tough. Feng Bao's arms could not exert force, and it was impossible to cut down. "Idiot, what did I teach you?" Su Weifeng cursed. Feng Bao was somewhat confused. Mind suddenly became clear, and she immediately remembered Su Weifeng's teachings these days. If you want to win, you have to hit the opponent with a fatal blow. The attack must directly attack the opponent's vital points. Attacks that are not aimed at the vital points are useless. Turning her eyes, she saw the pair of eyes of the python. Feng Bao quickly pulled out the dagger and stabbed it directly into one of the python's eyes. The eyes of a python are actually not very useful, but they are closest to the brain. Feng Bao's dagger not only stabbed into the eye, but also directly into the python's brain. This time the python let go of Feng Bao and wanted to escape. But Feng Bao was aroused and pounced on the python, stabbing the python's head and body with the dagger frantically. The man and the snake rolled violently in this small pool, and they were naked. This was really thrilling and exciting. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 560 Idiot. Even if the head of a snake is cut off, its body can still be tormented for a while. This python is more than 5 meters long, with a waist as thick as a bucket, and weighing several hundred kilograms. It has stronger fighting power, and Feng Baoa can't kill it for a while. But Feng Baoa was determined not to give up, until she killed the python. After tossing it for more than 20 minutes, the python finally lay motionless in the water. Feng Baoa stood in the water, like a female Tarzan, raising her hands to the sky, and letting out a long roar. He Xian screamed excitedly, and Sui Feng looked at Feng Baoa, and nodded with relief. But Feng Baoa suddenly fell into the water with a plop. This time Sui Feng rushed over, and carried Feng Baoa to the shore. "Master, I didn't embarrass you, did I?" Feng Baoa grinned, and gave Sui Feng a forced smile. Sui Feng snorted and said, "It's just a python. After you stabbed it in the vitals, you shouldn't get entangled with it. It's absolutely the most stupid thing, to be attacked by a dying person." Then he threw Feng Baoa to the ground. Feng Baoa fell with a crack and almost died. He Xian's mouth twitched. Sui Feng was too rude. He treated a beauty like Feng Baoa so rudely, especially when Feng Baoa was not wearing anything at this time. Sui Feng walked directly into the water and said, "Reflect on yourself." He Xian hurriedly brought clothes to Feng Baoa, but seeing that Feng Baoa was covered in mud, she quickly found a towel to help Feng Baoa wipe her body, and then helped her put on clothes. Feng Baoa had no strength at this time. The fight just now made her exhausted. She just let He Xian do whatever she wanted, but she kept thinking about Sui Feng's words in her mind. He Xian thought Feng Baoa was sad, and said to her comfortingly, "Sister Baoa, don't be angry. Brother Su is doing this for your own good. He just wants to promote you." So he spoke a little harshly. Feng Baoa finally came to her senses and said, "I'm not angry. I feel that what the master said is so right. I didn't have to be like this just now. My first knife had already put a heavy burden on it. Then I just had to find an opportunity to hit it on the head a few more times, and then I could wait for it to die. But I kept entangled with it. This is definitely my stupidity." He Xian looked at Feng Baoa in astonishment. Then the corner of her mouth twitched and she said, "You are really open-minded. What should I be upset about? If I want to learn real kung fu, I have to put away my little pride. Besides, I know very well whether the master really wants to help me." After that, Feng Baoa sat up and looked at Sui Feng, who was walking towards the shore with the python's tail in one hand, with a look of intoxication and admiration in her eyes. In the evening, Sui Feng prepared a meal of roasted python meat for the two of them. Since they had killed it, it would be a pity not to eat it. Snake meat is dragon meat, and is quite nutritious. When surviving in the wild, these things are definitely the most nutritious food. Feng Baoa ate so much that her mouth was full of oil, but He Xian didn't dare to eat it. Other things were okay, but she was born to be afraid of snakes. No matter how Feng Baoa said it was delicious, she refused to eat a bite. Although Sui Feng was very fierce to Feng Baoa on the surface, he still treated Feng Baoa's injuries carefully at night. Especially the wound on Feng Baoa's shoulder. The python's teeth penetrated deep. If it was not handled properly, it would be a troublesome thing. Feng Baoa was wearing a tight vest, and no bra inside. In the battle, the bra was very uncomfortable, so she gave up this thing from the second day. At this time, in order to facilitate Sui Feng's treatment of his injuries, the shoulder straps of the vest were also taken off, and some parts that should not be exposed were exposed to Sui Feng. Feng Baoa didn't care at all. She didn't know how many times Sui Feng had seen her in the past few days. In addition, she knew that Sui Feng had touched her when she slept at night. She also knew that Sui Feng's actions were unconscious, and he didn't want to take advantage of her, so she didn't mind. But what she didn't know was that Sui Feng didn't react on the surface, but in fact, he was complaining in his heart. If it weren't for his strong self-control, he would have done something messy. After one night, Feng Bao's injuries had basically recovered. Master, what kind of training are we doing today? Feng Bao knew that there would definitely be changes in today's training, and she was very much looking forward to it. Su Weifeng said, it's very simple. In the past, you, as a hunter, only went to hunt. Now I want you to snatch food from other carnivores. He Xian's mouth twitched immediately, and she said, isn't this too dangerous? Feng Bao was not afraid at all, and said, okay, I'll try it. Su Weifeng snorted and said, this should be done step by step. If you go to snatch food from lions now, you will be courting death. Oh. Feng Bao smiled awkwardly. Su Weifeng drove the car, and soon found a pair of prairie wolves. Prairie wolves are not big in size, about the same as foxes, but they can survive on the prairie, and are successful carnivores, which is enough to show that this animal is not as simple as it looks. The prairie wolves soon captured a young wildebeest. Even if it was a young wildebeest, it was a relatively large prey for the prairie wolves, and they could not take it away directly, so they could only eat it on the spot. This was a hard robbery, so Feng Bao didn't need to pay attention to any strategy, and rushed up directly. It is absolutely the nature of carnivores to guard their food. Think about the pet dogs at home. If they guard their food, they will be very fierce. Humans look bigger than prairie wolves, but for the two prairie wolves who want to snatch their food, they will crouch down without hesitation, baring their teeth and roaring continuously. If Feng Bao gets closer, they will attack without hesitation. Feng Bao is also brave enough. She pounced directly and kicked one of the prairie wolves. The two prairie wolves also attacked Feng Bao immediately. For a while, one person and two wolves fought fiercely there. Feng Bao's screams and the roars of the two wolves were endless. He Xian was frightened again. She saw with her own eyes that Feng Bao's arms and legs were bitten several times by the two prairie wolves. There were several times when one wolf bit Feng Bao's legs and refused to let go, tearing them madly. In this way, I don't know how much meat Feng Bao will be bitten off. This is not training at all. This is sending Feng Bao to her death. Chapter 561 Drinking to Celebrate. Come back. Su Weifeng shouted, and Feng Bao quickly retreated. The two prairie wolves chased Feng Bao for dozens of meters, and only returned when they saw Feng Bao jumped into the car. How are you? He Xian anxiously checked Feng Bao's injuries. Feng Bao grinned and said, it's okay, my arms and legs are wrapped in leather armor, I'm not injured, thank you master. He Xian realized that Su Weifeng cut off the python's skin last night, and now he knew that it must have been made into leather armor for Feng Bao. Su Weifeng snorted and said, as a powerful hunter, you must have an indomitable momentum to make the opponent feel that it is definitely not your opponent. Just now, when you rushed to the front of the prairie wolf, you hesitated for 2 seconds, letting them feel your hesitation. This is an important reason for their strong attack. After a pause, Su Weifeng continued, momentum is something that sounds ethereal, but in fact it is very useful. Why are you afraid when someone glares at you? Why don't you take it seriously when someone stomps their feet and scolds you? If you have enough momentum and confidence in winning, even if you are not as good as the opponent, you will be able to exert your strength 100%. The opponent will be suppressed by your momentum and cannot fully exert his strength. The stronger the momentum, the greater the impact. Feng Bao's eyes lit up when she heard it, and she said, Master, I understand. I really felt that momentum was nonsense in novels before. After your analysis, plus the confrontation with the prairie wolf just now, I really understand. At that time, I was indeed lacking a kind of momentum. Su Weifeng nodded in appreciation and said, then go again. Okay. Feng Bao nodded vigorously, and his spirit seemed to have improved. Two little wolves, let's do it again. After Feng Bao got off the car, he ran towards the two prairie wolves. This time he was full of momentum, and did not hesitate at all. The two wolves were not afraid at all, especially since they had just driven Feng Bao away. They were confident and bit Feng Bao again. In less than 2 minutes, Su Weifeng called Feng Bao back again. Feng Bao frowned and said, Master, I feel like I didn't do something right. You're right. Momentum doesn't just come out of your mouth. You have to accumulate your momentum from your words and actions, and even from the first step of getting off the car. When you rushed over just now, you just thought in your heart that you were not afraid of them, but in fact you didn't think that this food is mine and no one is allowed to grab it. You didn't think that you are not my opponent at all, and you are not qualified to compete with me here. Feng Bao nodded vigorously and said, I seem to understand. This time before getting off the car, Feng Bao took a deep breath, and then jumped off the car. After getting off the car, she screamed loudly, and then burst out with all her strength, and ran towards the two prairie wolves. She really had a kind of indomitable and brave momentum. The two prairie wolves immediately met, but Feng Bao's momentum was really fierce at this time, and there was definitely a determination not to give up until the goal was achieved. The two prairie wolves felt bad and soon ran away with their tails between their legs. Feng Bao roared excitedly twice, then carried the body of the wildebeest and walked towards the car. He Xian said cautiously, is this also a kind of self-hypnosis? Su Weifeng nodded and said, yes, but it is indeed very useful in battle. He Xian nodded and said, then I can learn it in the future. Su Weifeng looked at He Xian and said, to overwhelm people with your aura, it is not necessarily the most effective to appear more fierce. You can also use other methods. Other methods? He Xian looked at Su Weifeng in confusion. She actually felt that she could not display this kind of fierce aura at all. Yes, the first one is calm and indifferent, and the second one is contempt. He Xian carefully savored what Su Weifeng said, and then her eyes lit up, saying, it seems that I can practice calm and indifferent. Su Weifeng nodded and said, well, you can try. In the next few days, Feng Bao challenged beasts from prairie wolves to wild dogs, and then cheetahs, and even challenged the second largest beast in Africa, the spotted hyena. However, Su Weifeng did not let Feng Bao challenge the lion. The power of the lion is too great. No matter how much Feng Bao improves, she will never be a match for the lion. This is not only about training momentum, but also about how to save her life in front of dangerous opponents. In He Xian's view, every time Feng Bao went to training, she was fighting hard, like going to die, but Feng Bao came back alive every time. In the past half month, Feng Bao's temperament has changed drastically. Even if she is standing there now, she looks like a ferocious little female leopard. A glance can make people feel how fierce she is. In the evening, after lighting a bonfire, the three of them had another barbecue dinner. Master, are we leaving tomorrow? Feng Bao looked at the prairie in the dark night and was reluctant to leave. Su Weifeng nodded and said, in the past half month, you have successfully aroused your instinctive reaction. It is not very effective here. We need to go to another place. Feng Bao lay down on the ground and said, I'm really reluctant to leave. He Xian also smiled and said, it was a bit bitter, but I feel that this half month is definitely the happiest and most fulfilling half month in my life. By the way, she also cut a small piece of meat and put it directly into Feng Bao's mouth. The two of them really formed a deep friendship after getting along for half a month. Feng Bao suddenly sat up again and said, Master, I see you still have some wine in the car. Do you want to drink some tonight? Drink? Su Weifeng frowned slightly. Feng Bao immediately hugged Su Weifeng's neck from behind, shook him hard a few times, and said, Master, let's drink a little. There's nothing to do tonight. We'll leave tomorrow, so we should celebrate, right? Su Weifeng was overwhelmed. Feng Bao and Tao Tao both had the source of evil. This posture was simply life-threatening. Okay, drink a little. That wine is not meant to be drunk at all. Alcohol plays a big role in survival in the wild, including disinfection and sterilization. However, Feng Bao's performance was really good. Su Weifeng originally thought that it would take 20 days to complete the task, but he finished it in half a month. This is definitely worthy of praise. Feng Bao immediately shouted happily, and then kissed Su Weifeng hard on the face, and then let go, and jumped into the car. Chapter 562, Drunk Feng Bao. They all had cups for drinking water, and Feng Bao poured white wine into their cups one by one. He Xian hurriedly said, no, I don't know how to drink, you two can drink it. Feng Bao glared at him and said, what do you mean I can't drink? How do you know if you can drink if you don't drink? Besides, you are so happy today, you should at least drink something to cheer yourself up. He Xian hesitated for a moment and couldn't bear to spoil Feng Bao's interest, so she said, this, then pour less, so as not to waste it. Feng Bao laughed and said, what's the matter with more or less? If you can't drink it, I'll help you drink it. After pouring the wine, Feng Bao picked up the glass and said to Su Weifeng, Master, thank you for your teaching during this period of time. I, Feng Bao, will remember it for the rest of my life. This glass of wine, I toast you. Su Weifeng raised his glass to indicate and said, I bet $1 billion on you. For my $1 billion, I have to teach you well. Feng Bao raised the glass and took a big sip. The hot liquor went into her throat and she immediately said excitedly, it feels great. I have drunk liquor before, but I have never felt that drinking liquor can be so enjoyable. Su Weifeng laughed and said, you are like a wild beast here. You are no longer restrained by the crowd, and you don't have to consider other people's eyes when drinking. Feng Bao nodded repeatedly and said, yes, in the city, too many people are looking at you. Your parents are looking at you. Your relatives are looking at you. Your leaders are looking at you. Your colleagues are looking at you. Especially in our profession, the common people are all looking at you. If you make a mistake, there will be countless people criticizing you. While speaking, Feng Bao took another sip and then said to He Xian dissatisfiedly, you were kissing. Drink it. You have to drink something at least. He Xian said with a bitter face, it smells so pungent. That's how white wine is, but when you drink it, it tastes different. The first time I drank white wine, I also felt it was very unpalatable. Su Weifeng's face suddenly turned black. This Feng Bao really dares to say anything. He Xian's face turned red after what Feng Bao said. She took a sip of white wine and stammered, I've never had a boyfriend, how would I know these things? Cough, so spicy. Feng Bao laughed and said, actually, I haven't done it either, and I've never had a boyfriend. I'm just talking casually. He Xian rolled her eyes at Feng Bao and said, you haven't done it, but you talk so naturally. You must have done it, right? Feng Bao shook her head and said, really not. Do I have to do this kind of thing myself? I can hear it everywhere. By the way, a rich lady like you, naturally no one dares to tell you these dirty jokes. Su Weifeng glared at her and said, just drink if you want to, why are you making dirty jokes? Feng Bao was not afraid at this time. She smiled and said, Master, there's nothing to be afraid of talking. Just have fun. Su Weifeng tore off a piece of meat and stuffed it into Feng Bao's mouth. Feng Bao's next words could only become a woohoo sound. Although He Xian said that she couldn't drink, in fact, she was quite good at drinking. After drinking more than 2 teals of wine, her face was just a little pale, and her eyes became brighter and brighter. She didn't feel drunk at all. Although Feng Bao seemed to drink very heartily, she was actually average in alcohol tolerance. After drinking more than 3 teals of wine, she started to lose control. Master. With her arm around Su Weifeng's neck, Feng Bao patted her chest with her other hand and said, no, brother, I tell you, I really treat you as a brother now. As long as you can use me in the future, no matter how hard it is, I will do my best to help you. Su Weifeng was a little speechless. Why did so many women he knew have no drinking manners? For example, Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan would make a fuss when they drank too much. Looking at Feng Bao, it was the same. If you drink too much, then go to bed. Su Weifeng shook Feng Bao's arm. Feng Bao laughed and said, why, you want to sleep with me? Sure, let's sleep together. As she spoke, Feng Bao actually began to drag Su Weifeng into the tent. He Xian was laughing beside her. After Su Weifeng's adjustment and treatment these days, her recovery speed was really fast. There were basically no symptoms of depression, and her own strength had also improved a lot. If she continued like this, she would really be able to train a master. Su Weifeng just shrank his head and threw Feng Bao to the ground. Feng Bao struggled to sit up and immediately said to He Xian, Xian, come and help me. I dare not. He Xian quickly shook her head and refused. Feng Bao laughed and said, what is there to be afraid of? Let's deal with him today. He Xian didn't understand at once and said puzzledly, deal with? What do you mean? Feng Bao said with a sly smile, you've never had a boyfriend before, so let's try him out today. He Xian jumped up in fright and shook her head repeatedly, saying, no, no, how can this be possible? Feng Bao said with a grin, I tell you, if you miss this opportunity, you won't have it again. When we go back, this guy won't belong to us anymore. He Xian rolled her eyes at Feng Bao and said, don't make a fuss like that. If you annoy brother Su, you'll be in trouble. Feng Bao came over and wanted to hug Su Weifeng, saying, will you be angry? Su Weifeng stood up and grabbed her shoulders. Feng Bao was about to struggle, but in an instant she felt that she had no strength left in her body, and then she was thrown into the tent by Su Weifeng. Sleep well. If you come out again, I will tie you up and throw you in the car to sleep all night. Feng Bao pulled the curtain of the tent and saw that Su Weifeng seemed to be really annoyed and really didn't dare to come out. He laughed and said, Master, I was just joking with you. Why are you taking it so seriously? Su Weifeng snorted and said, you girl, can't you be nice to me? You are simply taking advantage of me. Feng Bao pouted and said, I know. Then she retreated back into the tent. After eating, Su Weifeng and He Xian cleaned up and went into the tent to rest. However, just as Su Weifeng lay down, Feng Bao suddenly pounced on him, and her arms tightly locked Su Weifeng's arms, and her legs also directly locked his legs. Stinky girl, do you still want to try my kung fu? Su Weifeng chuckled. Yes, I want to try, but what I'm trying is. Feng Bao said here, suddenly lowered her head, and kissed Su Weifeng heavily on the lips. Chapter 563, Wine doesn't make people drunk, people get drunk. This sneak attack was beyond Su Weifeng's expectation, and Feng Bao succeeded in the attack. Su Weifeng tried to avoid it, but Feng Bao's skills came in handy, and she clung to Su Weifeng like a piece of taffy. If it was an enemy, Su Weifeng would have many tricks at this time, but since this was his own man, he couldn't use heavy hands, and Feng Bao was so tight that he couldn't get rid of her for a while. He Xian was stunned and didn't know what to do at the moment. She just sat there like a log and looked at the two of them. Su Weifeng soon got the chance and swept Feng Bao's arm with his fingertips. Feng Bao's arm lost its strength immediately. Even if it was just a short moment, Su Weifeng had already escaped successfully. Are you crazy? Su Weifeng threw Feng Bao onto the mat and sat up. Feng Bao lay on the mat gasping for breath. After a while, she sat up, puffed out her chest and said, I'm asking you, are you still a man? Nonsense. Su Weifeng glared at her. Feng Bao still said with full momentum, I have taken the initiative, why don't you come to me? Su Weifeng slapped Feng Bao on the shoulder and made her roll to the side of the tent. Get out, you are not my wife, I will not come to you. Feng Bao got up and said with both grievance and surprise, oh my god, you took advantage of me a lot in the bar that time, and now I'm offering myself to you, but you still don't want it. Feng Bao suddenly slapped her thigh and said, oh, I understand, is it because Xian is here? Are you afraid that Xian will tell your wife? He Xian hurriedly said, I won't tell, I'm going out. Su Weifeng stretched out his hand and pulled her back, saying, don't listen to Feng Bao's nonsense, she is just drunk. Then he turned around and glared at Feng Bao again, saying, if you dare to make trouble again, I will really tie you up and sleep with you. Feng Bao finally calmed down. After the three of them lay down quietly, although Feng Bao was making a lot of noise, she fell asleep quickly due to the alcohol and the heavy training during the day. Su Weifeng knew that Feng Bao would not make a fuss, so he also went to bed. He Xian secretly glanced at Su Weifeng's face, but she couldn't fall asleep for a long time. To be honest, He Xian saw that Su Weifeng had a wife and had such a relationship with Tao Tao, so she still had some opinions about Su Weifeng's relationship with men and women. And she stayed with Su Weifeng because she was worried about what Su Weifeng would do to her, but the pain made her stay. She was ready. If Su Weifeng really treated her like that, she could only accept it. At least this kind of life was better than enduring the pain. But in the past half month here, except for the unconsciousness after going to bed at night, Su Weifeng basically didn't have any improper thoughts about her and Feng Bao. Now He Xian is really getting more and more unable to see through this man. He is so strong. Bringing the two to this kind of African grassland, he still can prevent the three from encountering danger and can also improve the strength of Feng Bao and her. His financial strength is also very strong, and he can take out $1 billion US. He has a strong background and extensive connections. From the current point of view, even Yulenzi family is not as strong as him. He is also loyal and righteous. Feng Bao actually had an average relationship with him before, but because of his relationship, Feng Bao was beaten, so he proposed such a bet, and went through untold hardships to train Feng Bao. This man is full of intoxicating things, which makes Yixian look at him, and actually a little crazy. What's wrong? Su Weifeng suddenly opened his eyes. No, nothing. Yixian quickly closed her eyes. Su Weifeng stretched out his hand and pressed on Yixian's forehead, saying, "Are you suffering from insomnia again? Is your brain affected again?" Yixian only felt an extremely comfortable feeling coming from her forehead all of a sudden. These days, even if she didn't have any bad reactions, she also liked Su Weifeng's hand on her head. As long as Su Weifeng put his hand on her head, any negative emotions would disappear, and her heart would suddenly become extremely peaceful. There is a word called touching the head to kill, and Yixian seems to be like this now. Su Weifeng did not feel any changes in the breath in Yixian's body, and then Yixian fell asleep quickly. Su Zifeng also found that, as long as he put his hand on Yixian's head and said something, Yixian would immediately do what he said, which was really useful. The next night, Su Weifeng and his friends left the prairie. This time, Su Weifeng brought Yixian to a famous gambling city, Las Vegas. They lived in a remote independent house, far away from the surrounding people, and there was no worry of being disturbed by others. Su Weifeng began to teach Feng Bao the real fighting skills here. Feng Bao had learned the art of defeating the enemy in the police academy before, but here it is more about how to subdue the opponent. And what Su Weifeng taught Feng Bao was the real art of hurting people, or the art of killing people. How to use the shortest and most direct way to make the opponent lose his fighting power. This is the real fight. The real fight. Feng Bao had already honed her wildness and momentum on the grassland some time ago. Now she systematically learns this tactic, which is twice the result with half the effort, and the effect is surprisingly good. Now there is a certain degree of progress almost every hour. Yixian is also learning beside her, and her progress is also very fast, but she learns Kung Fu mainly to exercise her physique, at most to give herself a little self-protection power, so she sees that these moves basically seriously injure the opponent, so her interest has decreased a lot. Another week of training here. There is only 1 week left before the competition. It was another morning. After Feng Bao had trained for an hour, Su Weifeng said to her, "Tonight, you have a match." Match? Feng Bao's eyes lit up, and she said excitedly, "I feel like I can beat any opponent now." Su Weifeng said calmly, "This is a black boxing match. Do you know what that means? Black boxing? The kind of match that decides life or death." Feng Bao's face suddenly became a little horrified. Su Weifeng said casually, "Yes, once you get on the ring, it's either you or me. Do you dare to go up?" Feng Bao bit her lip, then waved her fist heavily and said, "Go. I dare to go up." Chapter 564 Strict Teacher. Black boxing match. This is the cruelest kind of match in the world, because people often die in this kind of match, even in a gambling city like Las Vegas. This kind of match cannot exist normally. This kind of match is illegal and belongs to the kind of underground black match. But the excitement of this kind of match is far beyond any other kind of fighting match. There are no rules for this kind of match. After the contestants enter the iron cage, there is no referee. Both sides can use any kind of attack method. As long as they can make the opponent lose combat effectiveness, they will be considered a winner. Because there is no restriction on hitting the vital parts, both sides often attack the vital parts of the opponent, so the mortality rate is also surprisingly high. The excitement of this kind of match attracted many people to watch, and the tickets for any match are quite expensive. In addition, during the match, there are also dealers opening the market, and everyone can go to gamble, which makes the match more exciting. At 5 o'clock in the evening, Su Weifeng brought Feng Bao and Yixian to the competition venue. After entering a contestant room, Feng Bao whispered, "Master, I feel like you are so familiar with this place." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, I'm a very famous agent here. I have brought many people here to practice. The bosses here are all very polite to me. Feng Bao widened her eyes and said, oh my god, you are so awesome. You can get along so well abroad. Su Weifeng said, there are still many things you don't know. Now you just need to prepare well. The opponent I picked for you today is about the same strength as you. If you are careless at all, you will easily fail, and failure may mean your death in his hands. Feng Bao suddenly became serious and said, I will never embarrass the master. Su Weifeng snorted and said, I hope you will do what you say. He Xian said at this time, brother Su, don't you have the opponent's information? We can also prepare in advance. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, there is information, but I won't give it to her. Her goal is not to beat him, but to improve herself from real combat. You need to be able to adapt to the unknown of the enemy. He Xian immediately apologized and said, that's because I didn't think it through. Feng Bao clenched her fist and said, don't worry, I will definitely win. At 7 o'clock, Feng Bao played the first game. In the first game, newcomers usually come here to compete. The audience here is not familiar with the players, so there is no expectation. They just watch the excitement and place bets randomly. But when the host introduced the two players, the audience became excited all of a sudden. There are women who come to fight in black boxing, but there are really not many, especially this kind of fight between men and women, which is even rarer, but it makes people feel more exciting. So when Feng Bao came on stage, screams and whistles were heard everywhere. But when Feng Bao stood with her opponent, everyone had no confidence in Feng Bao. Feng Bao's opponent turned out to be a big guy who was almost 2 meters tall and weighed 240 to 250 kilograms. His thick arms were thicker than Feng Bao's thighs, and his fists seemed to be bigger than Feng Bao's head. I'm afraid that this punch would directly blow Feng Bao's head. This is not a match of the same weight class. Regardless of whether they are coaches or assistants, Su Weifeng and He Xian should normally be able to stay next to the cage. After all, if they surrender, the coaches outside the ring are still qualified to do so, and at least they can save the players' lives. But at this time, Su Weifeng and He Xian were in a small room, watching the match on the TV on the wall. When He Xian saw the big guy, her face suddenly became ugly. She said, brother Su, do we really not have to go over there? Su Weifeng leaned back on the sofa comfortably, holding a glass of wine in his hand. He took a sip and said leisurely, she is the one competing, and we can't compete for her. What are we going to do over there? He Xian frowned and said, but we can shout surrender or admit defeat. Su Weifeng said indifferently, if she can't even beat such an opponent, then she will die here. How can you be so cruel? After all, she is your friend, and she calls you master all the time. Do you want to see her die in front of you? Is that so? Su Weifeng pondered for a moment, picked up the remote control, and turned off the TV, saying, okay, I can't watch it now. You are cold-blooded. He Xian stomped her feet twice in anger, then snatched the remote control, and turned on the TV again. Then you watch it, I'm going to sleep. Su Weifeng lay down on the sofa, closed his eyes, and really didn't even look at the TV. He Xian was even more furious, but now that the game had begun, her attention was immediately drawn to the game. Half an hour later, Feng Bao came into the room. Her face was covered in blood, and she looked really horrible. He Xian rushed forward, tears about to flow, grabbed Feng Bao's arm, and choked up and said, Bao, you. Haha, I won. Feng Bao picked He Xian up at once. After putting He Xian down, Feng Bao excitedly rushed to Su Weifeng and said, Master, I won. Su Weifeng opened his eyes, but his face was gloomy, and he said unhappily, Humph, it took you 8 minutes to defeat such a fool, and you got yourself injured. It's really useless. Feng Bao's face suddenly froze, her lips moved twice, and she didn't know what to say. He Xian said angrily, Brother Su, you are really too much. Bao finally won, but you not only didn't praise her, but now you criticize her. Su Weifeng snorted, and said to Feng Bao, think about it yourself, before talking to me. He Xian pulled Feng Bao's arm and said, let's ignore this unreasonable guy. Then he took He Xian, and started to treat the wound on her brow bone. However, Just as she wiped the blood off Feng Bao's face, Su Weifeng snorted and said, "The breath in your body can also be used so that her injury will heal faster and there will be no scars." "Ah." He Xian cried out. Su Weifeng said with a gloomy face, "Watch it. If she gets injured again in the future, you will be responsible for treating the injury." He Xian quickly stepped back and watched Su Weifeng carefully treating Feng Bao's wound. Su Weifeng spoke harshly, but his technique was quite delicate. This made He Xian suddenly realize a problem. Perhaps Feng Bao's performance was really not good, which made Su Weifeng angry. Chapter 565, Feng Bao's Evil Deeds. "Master, I made a lot of mistakes in this match." After recovering from the injury, Feng Bao's joy was over, and she could face up to this match. "My first mistake was that I was intimidated by the size of the opponent and thought of myself as a weakling, which weakened my momentum. My second mistake was that I didn't make good use of my speed. My third mistake was that I didn't seize the opportunity and didn't attack continuously when I should have expanded the victory. I continued to attack, even though I could have retreated after one attack." Feng Bao mentioned several mistakes. Su Weifeng nodded and said, "It's useless for me to teach you these mistakes. Only through actual combat can you truly experience them." Feng Bao finally got Su Weifeng's affirmation and immediately said excitedly, "Yes. If I fight him again now, I will definitely be able to resolve the battle within 8 minutes. Humph, what's the point of fighting an opponent? Let's fight someone else tomorrow. Let's go back and rest today." After listening to Feng Bao's review, He Xian felt that Su Weifeng's anger was justified. Feng Bao actually made so many mistakes. She said to Su Weifeng with a guilty conscience, "Brother Su, I wronged you." Su Weifeng said lightly, "It's nothing. It's normal for you to care about Bao, but as a master, I can't be as emotional as you. Otherwise I will only cultivate a waste." He Xian hurriedly said, "Yes, yes, then Brother Su, you have to be stricter with me in the future." Su Weifeng smiled and said, "Don't say I'm cruel anymore." He Xian grabbed Su Weifeng's arm and shook it gently a few times. No, it's because I have a small vision and don't think long term. Brother Su, please don't be angry with me." The next day, Su Weifeng began to teach Feng Bao various fighting skills. At night, Feng Bao went to play again. In fact, the opponents that Su Weifeng found for Feng Bao were very particular. The first opponent was actually a little weaker than Feng Bao. As long as Feng Bao didn't make a big mistake, Feng Bao would definitely win. This time was to cultivate Feng Bao's confidence. But in the next game, the opponent's strength is getting stronger and stronger, and the tolerance rate is getting lower and lower. If Feng Bao wants to win, there must be no mistakes in strategy and tactics, as well as reaction to the enemy. In the last 2 games, Feng Bao even needs to perform at an extraordinary level to defeat the opponent. Especially in the last game, Feng Bao fought extremely fiercely. Although she won the fight with the opponent, she was also seriously injured and even broke 2 ribs. Back to the villa, Su Weifeng treated Feng Bao's injuries again. This time, he stripped off Feng Bao's shirt and started to treat her. Other skin injuries were fine, but Su Weifeng was still not vague about this bone injury. Feng Bao's endurance was much stronger now. Although she was sweating from the pain, when the bone was set, she didn't say a word. She was really a ruthless girl. He Xian was watching from the side and was secretly shocked, but she couldn't help with such an injury. After all, her strength was much worse than Su Weifeng's, and she was just good at treating some external injuries. After the treatment, Feng Bao was not in a hurry to cover her body. Instead, she smiled and said to Su Weifeng, "Master, you have taken advantage of me like this. Why don't you even show any expression?" Su Weifeng glared and said, "What else do you want to show?" Feng Bao smiled and said, "As a man, facing a woman who has taken off her clothes, you have no reaction like this. I feel very frustrated. Then continue to frustrate me." Su Weifeng snorted and turned to walk out. He Xian took the quilt and covered Feng Bao with it, saying, "You are provoking Brother Su like this. Aren't you afraid that he will be really angry?" Feng Bao said with a smile, "I'm not afraid. When I first met him, he took advantage of me." "Oh, then can you tell me about it?" He Xian immediately became interested. Although the two of them spent a lot of time together in the past half month, Feng Bao only trained and rested. The two of them didn't have many opportunities to chat like other girls. Feng Bao was seriously injured today and couldn't do anything else. She was in a good mood, so she told her about the past with Su Weifeng. Oh my god. Brother Su is still so bad? He Xian couldn't help blushing when she heard how Su Weifeng took advantage of Feng Bao in the bar for the first time. Then he spat at Feng Bao and said, "You are really amazing. You could actually, ahem." Feng Bao laughed dryly and said, "Yeah, I felt ashamed too. I'm a virgin after all, but he made me look like this. But later I figured it out. This guy's too skilled. I have no experience in this area, so I fell into his trap. Maybe." He Xian thought that Su Weifeng's girlfriend was more complicated and nodded in agreement. Feng Bao snorted and said, "This guy is even more hateful. Anything else?" He Xian was more interested. Feng Bao said angrily, "I was wrong just now. He first met me in the gym, and that was also where he took advantage of me for the first time." Feng Bao told the story of the fight between the two of them on the ring again. As for why he remembered the first time he was taken advantage of wrongly, it was mainly because the second time was in the bar, which left a deep impression on her. Even now, she can still remember every detail of that incident. He Xian blushed when she heard this, but she felt it was really interesting. Then I don't understand. Brother Su was so reckless back then, but now he doesn't behave like that at all. We were in the grassland, sleeping in the same tent every day, and he never took advantage of us on purpose. Feng Bao curled her lips and said, "Who knows, Humph, maybe he's just pretending, and he might explode one day and kill you and me together." He Xian's face flushed immediately, and she said, "Brother Su is not that kind of person. Don't talk nonsense." Feng Bao said with a wicked smile, "As a policeman, I have to remind you, you know that most of the rapists are not deliberate, they are impulsive, they are suddenly overcome by evil thoughts, and then they do unforgivable things. Then why aren't you worried?" He Xian looked unconvinced. Feng Bao raised her eyebrows and said, "What do I have to worry about? Anyway, he has taken all the advantages of me. Even if he really sleeps with me, it won't be a problem for me." Oh. He Xian was really scared by what Feng Bao said. She subconsciously fantasized in her mind that if Su Weifeng did such a thing, it didn't seem like there was anything to be afraid of. Chapter 566 The Killer Attacks. 2 days later, Feng Bao's injuries had healed. After a lively training session in the open space, Feng Bao said to Su Weifeng expectantly, "Master, is there any more training next?" "There is one last training session," Su Weifeng said lightly. "What training?" Feng Bao's eyes suddenly lit up terribly. Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, "Killer. Killer." Feng Bao's nerves suddenly tensed up. "That's right," Su Weifeng said calmly. "I have spread the news that you are here. I think there will be assassins coming to kill you soon." He Xian said in panic, "What should we do? Should we leave quickly?" Before Su Weifeng answered, Feng Bao had already waved her hand vigorously and said, "No, I want to stay here." He Xian said anxiously, "The assassins should come to kill you directly. This is completely different from the competition." Feng Bao showed a crazy smile on her face and said, "The stronger the opponent, the more I can test my ability. Don't you think so, Master?" Su Weifeng said, "Although this is the last training, the risk factor is still quite high, and this is a life and death struggle. If you want to survive, you must kill the assassins. If you try to subdue them, you will die in their hands. Murder." Feng Bao's mouth twitched. In these few matches of black boxing, although it is also possible to kill people in the competition, Feng Bao actually did not really do anything ruthless and never killed an opponent. Now Su Weifeng clearly asked her to kill someone, which was definitely a challenge beyond Feng Bao's imagination. Su Weifeng did not urge her and said lightly, "You can refuse, think about it, and give me an answer at 12 noon. After that, Su Weifeng entered the villa. He Xian hesitated for a moment and said, "Bao, how about, forget it?" Feng Bao's mouth twitched, but she did not answer. At 12 o'clock noon, Feng Bao came to Su Weifeng, gritted her teeth, and said, "Master, are these killers the kind of killers who can ignore human lives just for money?" Su Weifeng nodded and said, "Of course. They must have killed many people. Feng Bao asked again, if I kill them, will it be considered illegal? Su Weifeng took a sip of tea leisurely and said, you have to judge this by yourself. You are a policeman, you know this better than me. Feng Bao took a deep breath and said, then I accept this challenge. Su Weifeng nodded and said, then within 24 hours from now, I will take Xian away. If you want to survive, it depends on your own efforts. Feng Bao waved his fist vigorously and said, I will definitely survive. Su Weifeng left, as soon as he said he would, and took He Xian away with him. In another house a few kilometers away, He Xian said worriedly, Brother Su, it seems that the killer may have a gun. Yeah. Su Weifeng sat in a rocking chair, rocking gently, feeling indescribably comfortable. Can Bao do it? Gun. He Xian frowned tightly. Su Weifeng said lightly, it's okay, they won't use guns this time. He Xian said puzzledly, how do you know? Isn't it the easiest thing for a killer, to kill people with a gun? Su Weifeng still said calmly, don't worry, I said they won't use guns, then it's impossible to use guns. In the middle of the night, 4 dark shadows were quietly moving towards the villa where Feng Bao lived. They were the 4 killers. Just when they were more than 20 meters away from the villa, a man walked straight towards them. The 4 people immediately hid in the dark and stared at the person who was walking towards them. The man walked to the middle of them and said in English, leave the gun behind. The 4 people were stunned for a moment, and then the man waved his hand, and a dagger pierced into the tree next to a killer. It was just a moment of distraction, and the man disappeared from the spot. One killer pulled out the dagger, and then his face changed immediately. What's wrong? Another killer asked in a low voice. Feng Gan. The killer's voice was trembling. The few people grabbed the dagger to check. There was a breeze and a white cloud on the dagger. It was just a few strokes, but it looked very lifelike. For ordinary people, this is nothing special, but no one in the killer organizations or mercenary groups does not know what this dagger represents. That is, it represents the Feng Gan mercenary group. The mercenary group ranked 3rd in the world is extremely powerful. Even if each of the killers here is a desperate criminal, they all know what it means if they go against the will of the Feng Gan mercenary group. Throw the gun here. One of the killers took a deep breath, then took out his gun and threw it on the ground. The other 3 also put their guns on the ground without hesitation. Boss, are we still going to carry out the mission? One of the killers asked again. The killer boss said unhappily, what the hell are we still going to carry out? Feng Gan's people want to protect her. Do we dare to kill her? The voice sounded again. Go and kill her, leave alive, and collect the reward. The 4 killers looked at each other in surprise. The killer boss gritted his teeth and said, okay, let's go. The 4 people touched Feng Bao's villa. For a killer, a gun is just the easiest way to kill people. They have more ways to kill people. It's just a woman. They have already obtained the information of this woman. More than 20 days ago, she was just a small policeman. With that kind of fighting ability, any one of them can kill her in seconds. Even if this woman has any improvement in this month, the 4 people will definitely kill her easily. Seeing the 4 killers sneak into the villa, Su Weifeng still followed. He knew very well that even without a gun, Feng Bao would definitely not be a match for these 4 killers. But he had to let Feng Bao experience this kind of life and death situation, so that she would understand that without the help of others, she could only rely on herself. Only in this way could Feng Bao's potential be truly stimulated. If Su Weifeng's training of Feng Bao some time ago was to tap into her own abilities, then this time he was to tap into her potential beyond her own abilities. Only by stimulating this potential can Feng Bao improve further. So although Su Weifeng followed, he would not let Feng Bao find out, and unless Feng Bao encountered a fatal crisis, Su Weifeng would not intend to take action. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 567 The Eve of the War. October 27th, Yangcheng. For ordinary people, this is an insignificant day, but for many people from big families, today has made everyone think about one thing. Feng Bao will compete with Jin Yuhu tomorrow, but there is no news about Feng Bao. Not only Feng Bao, but even Su Weifeng is nowhere to be seen. Jin family. In addition to several important figures of the Jin family and Jin Yuhu, there are two other important figures of the Liu family. One of the Liu family said, "Boss Jin, are you sure they succeeded?" Jin Chengfeng nodded and said, "They have sent a message saying that she was seriously injured in Las Vegas, and they also sent pictures of the scene. You can take a look." Then he sent two pictures to the Liu family. In the pictures, Feng Bao was lying on the ground, with conspicuous wounds on her arms and legs. On her right arm, the bones at the wound seemed to have been broken. After seeing it, the Liu family laughed and said, "Not bad, not bad. Injuring without killing is the best effect." Jin Yuhu, however, had a gloomy face at this time and said, "Even if I win, it is not a fair victory, and other families will have many excuses." Jin Chengfeng laughed and said, "Yuhu, you are just acting on impulse. Think about it, how big the stakes are this time. As long as we win, no matter what method we use to win, our Jin family and Liu family will get a lot of benefits. This kind of benefit is equivalent to annexing a big family, which will double our strength." A member of the Liu family also said with a smile, "When that time comes, our Liu family's position in the provincial capital will be unshakable, and your Jin family's position in Yangcheng will be irreplaceable. You can both command the four directions." Jin Chengfeng patted the armrest vigorously and said excitedly, "Yes, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Besides, who can say that we did it?" Jin Yuhu still said with some dissatisfaction, "That woman's strength is so weak, I can definitely beat her. In this situation, alas, I don't even have the interest to fight her." Jin Chengfeng glared and said, "Yuhu, how can you think like this? You know how serious the problem involved this time is. We can't make any mistakes." The Liu family also said with a smile, "Yuhu, wait until we become the real overlord in our province, then you will see what it feels like. Don't worry about such trivial matters." Jin Chengfeng said with a smile, "This time, the Shu family and the ZHU family will definitely go bankrupt, but we still have to consider what to do if they default on their debts. After all, they have put everything of their family on a bet. If they are desperate, they will really not admit it." The Liu family snorted and said, "We have already made preparations. We have contacted all the major families. Before the game, we will put pressure on them again." Jin Chengfeng nodded and said, "I have also contacted many families in Yangcheng. Only when our many families join forces can we suppress them." Ha. This time it was the ZHU family and the Shu family who were courting death, so we really can't be blamed. At this time in Su Weifeng's villa, the hosts were the sisters Qiao Yushan and Lin Zuangxun. The guests were ZHU Xiaoxun and Xu Lingling. Zhao Xiaoshu and Sun Yumeng were two errand boys. In such a big event, they could only be anxious, but they couldn't say anything. Lin Zuangxun frowned and said, "Why hasn't this guy come back yet?" Xu Lingling was also turning back and forth anxiously, and said, "Yeah, we are so anxious. He doesn't give us any information, so why doesn't he even give us your information?" Qiao Yushan's face also showed anxiety, and she said, "A few days ago he said he would have the final training, and said he wouldn't contact us for the time being to avoid distraction, but there is no news until today." ZHU Xiaoxun was the most stable one at this time, and said, "It should be okay. Brother Su will never let us down. If he doesn't come back now, he will definitely come back tomorrow, and he will definitely bring us surprises." Lin Zuangxun couldn't help but shake his head repeatedly and said, "You really dare to make trouble with him and hand over your life and property to him. And it's not just your own life and property, but the life and property of the entire family." Qiao Yushan also couldn't help but shake her head repeatedly and said, "Yes, the stakes are really too high, and this is not just a bet on Su Weifeng, but also on Feng Bao." As a CEO, she felt that this was too unreliable. After all, Feng Bao was just an ordinary girl. How much did everyone know about Feng Bao? Doing business, that is absolutely not allowed. Even if you have confidence in Feng Bao, you can't go allowed to do it. ZHU Xiaoxun smiled and said, "I don't believe in Feng Bao, but I believe in Brother Su. Since Brother Su wants to do this, we completely believe that Brother Su can win." Lin Zhuangxuan shrugged and said, I believe in him too. If he is not sure, he will not do such an impulsive thing. The key is that he doesn't even send back a message. Isn't this also worrying? Qiao Yushan looked at the few people here, and the corners of her mouth twitched secretly. Why does it feel that everyone here is full of confidence in Su Weifeng? Only her nominal wife has no confidence in Su Weifeng. Alas. Qiao Yushan couldn't help but sigh in her heart, as if the people here have a better relationship with Su Weifeng, as if her wife is an outsider. This night was quite difficult. They said they believed in Su Weifeng, but tomorrow's matter was imminent, especially Zhu Zhaoxuan and Xu Lingling. They put everything of the two families on Su Weifeng. Even if there was a little problem, it would make the two families fall into the abyss. The next day, they came to the gym early. Many people from big families also came here. Although this was just a bet, it might decide the future direction of the two major families in Yangcheng, and how the two major families in the provincial capital would be annexed. Other families need to know the result, and then decide what to do in the future. The people from the Jin family also came early. Many families greeted them one after another. After all, the Jin family had a huge chance of winning this time. Now they expressed their attitude first. It was not to say that it was a timely help, but at least it was on the united front. But if they waited until the result came out before coming here, it would be a matter of following the wind, and the effect would naturally be greatly reduced. Everyone here is a smart person, at least they think what they are doing is smart. Chapter 568, All Living Things. This time, many elders from the Zhu and Xu families also came. They were also afraid that Zhu Zhaoxuan and Xu Lingling would not be able to cope at the last moment. A group of young people came over. These people all had grudges against Su Weifeng. Mi Xiangang was Xu Lingling's former fiancé. After Su Weifeng ruined their marriage, he and Qiao Qingming came to trouble Su Weifeng and were filmed, losing a lot of money. The two had not troubled Su Weifeng for a while, but this time they couldn't help it. They wanted to get everything back. Wu Kuanao had a big conflict with Su Weifeng in the provincial capital, and suffered even more losses. As for Li Zihao, although he didn't have a big conflict with Su Weifeng, he thought that Su Weifeng had ruined his marriage with the Xu family, so he still hated Su Weifeng in his heart. Mi Xiangang is the most powerful person here. He looked at Xu Lingling, snorted, and said, Lingling, I didn't expect you to be so stupid, and I didn't expect your Xu family to be so stupid. Xu Lingling glared and shouted, Mi Xiangang, you'd better shut up. Mi Xiangang laughed and said, Lingling, it's no use being fierce now, your Xu family will lose everything soon. Considering that we once had an engagement, I'm a person who cherishes old feelings. How about this, you come back and follow me. Although I can't marry you, it's no problem for me to support you. Then I will still favor you when the time comes, and you just need to serve me. Asshole. Xu Lingling grabbed a bottle of mineral water and threw it at Mi Xiangang. Mi Xiangang blocked it casually and said with a grin, Ha, you still have some capital to lose your temper now, but I'm afraid that this capital will be gone soon. Qiao Qingming also sneered and said, Xu Lingling, you gave up the marriage with the Mi family at the beginning, but now you have been cheated by that bastard Su Weifeng. You really deserve it. Xu Lingling was not angry at this time. She sneered and said disdainfully, Are you sure we will lose? What if we don't lose? Not lose? You still have such an illusion. I really admire you. That's right, I really don't know what's going on in your heads. Mi Xiangang and Qiao Qingming were mocking Xu Lingling here. Li Zihao couldn't get a word in at this time. He could only look at Xu Lingling with a mocking look. Wu Kuanao looked at Sun Yumeng, raised his eyebrows frivolously and said, Little girl, the man you are with is going to be finished this time. Let me protect you from now on. Sun Yumeng's face turned red all of a sudden. She felt embarrassed and annoyed, but it was difficult for her to argue with others. Zhu Zhaoxuan snorted and said, Wu Kuanao, stop talking nonsense here. Wu Kuanao would not dare to breathe when he saw Zhu Zhaoxuan in the past, but this time he was full of confidence. He laughed and said, Zhu Zhaoxuan, do you think your Zhu family will still be as powerful as before? I'm afraid that from today on, there will be no Zhu family like you in the provincial capital. What qualifications do you have to yell at me? Zhu Xiaoxuan shook his head gently and said, then let's wait until after today. Wu Kuanao, I'll remember you. Zhu Xiaoxuan's voice was not loud, and his tone was not harsh, but Wu Kuanao felt quite panicked when he heard it. However, he immediately raised his head and said angrily, Zhu Xiaoxuan, maybe tomorrow you will become my Wu Kuanao's woman. Zhu Xiaoxuan narrowed his eyes with a hint of coldness in them. He nodded and said, you'd better hope you are right. Wu Kuanao opened his mouth, but turned around and stopped talking to Zhu Xiaoxuan. He felt that it was too stressful to speak in front of this woman. There were basically no people from Zhu Jiashu's family with them now. Most of them were gathered around the Jin family and the Liu family. Zhao Mingyang and Zheng Yulan came to Zhu Xiaoxuan's side. Both of them looked embarrassed. Everyone, sister-in-law. When the two saw these beauties, they didn't know how to address them for a moment, and then they came up with this address. Qiao Yushan could accept it calmly, but the expressions of the others were different. Zhu Xiaoxuan coughed lightly and said, you two don't have to be embarrassed. I understand your situation. Zheng Yulang sighed and said, we also tried hard to persuade our family, but they really didn't dare to bet the fate of the family on you, so they can only remain neutral. Zhu Xiaoxuan smiled slightly at this time and said, Mingyang, Yulang, we fully understand that your family thinks so. At this time, you still come to tell us these things. We are really grateful to you. Zhao Mingyang hurriedly said, look at what you said. We absolutely believe in our eldest brother. As long as he does something, we don't believe it won't succeed. The key is that this matter is too big and the family has no idea and we don't have that much say in the family. Lin Zuangxuan raised his chin proudly at this time and said, after this time, you will have this say. The two were stunned for a moment, then nodded repeatedly, and then lowered their voices and said, sisters-in-law, don't worry, we won't go back and say anything nonsense, so that these short-sighted people will regret not listening to us. Zhu Xiaoxuan glared at the two and said, don't talk nonsense, Yushan is your sister-in-law. Zhao Mingyang and Zheng Yulang immediately felt that something bad had happened, and hurriedly looked at Qiao Yushan, speechless, and didn't know how to explain for a while. Qiao Yushan smiled slightly and said, it's okay, I know you are Wei Feng's good brothers. Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang thought that Qiao Yushan was speaking in a sarcastic way, so the two of them were guilty. It was clear that they were here to provoke Su Weifeng's backyard. Sister-in-law, we are just used to talking nonsense. We really just wanted to make a joke. We really don't have any other intentions. Yes, sister-in-law, our boss is absolutely loyal to you. In the provincial capital, we asked him to go out and play many times, but he never went with us once. Qiao Yushan looked at the anxious looks of the two people, but she felt an indescribable satisfaction in her heart, and said, I really don't care. I know very well who Wei Feng is. Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang still felt a little guilty. Zhu Xiaoxuan winked at them, and the two apologized again, and hurried back to their own families. When the people of these families were showing their various appearances, someone suddenly rushed in quickly and said excitedly, here they come. Here they come. They are back. Chapter 569. Adding insult to injury. Qiao Yushan, Lin Zuangxuan, Zhu Xiaoxuan, Xu Lingling, Zhao Xiaoshu and Sun Yumeng, 6 beauties, immediately rushed to the door excitedly. The people of the Zhu and Xu families also followed, and as for the others, they were all waiting inside. And many family members were also murmuring in their hearts at this time. Even if the protagonist of this competition is Feng Baoer, even if Su Weifeng is the main person who provoked this gambling fight, it seems that the people of the Zhu and Xu families don't need to greet them now. And the Xu family and the people of the Xu family are not just young people, that is, all members went together. Now everyone can only think that the Zhu and Xu families have put all their wealth on Su Weifeng and Feng Baoer, so they value them so much. When Su Weifeng finally appeared in front of Qiao Yushan and others, everyone was excited and wanted to rush up, but in the end almost everyone stopped. Qiao Yushan took a deep breath and went to meet him. With a straight face, she said, you still remember to come back? After saying this, Qiao Yushan was stunned. She had never thought of blaming Su Weifeng, but why did this sentence come out naturally? Su Weifeng immediately grinned with a guilty conscience and said, didn't something happen at the end? Lin Zhuangxuan followed up and said, sister, when brother-in-law comes home, you can deal with him however you want. Now let him do his job. Qiao Yushan nodded, then glared at Su Weifeng again and said, you can only win but not lose. Otherwise you will be in trouble when you go home tonight. Su Weifeng hurriedly said, yes, you must not embarrass your wife. Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan would never do this to others, but when they talked, they were unconsciously like this. One wanted to scold, and the other wanted to apologize. This seemed to be a pair of real couples. Su Weifeng and ZHU Zhuangxuan all nodded, and then greeted the people from the Shu and ZHU families. Jin Yu who stepped out of the crowd and shouted at Su Weifeng, Su Weifeng, you are so arrogant for coming here at this time and making so many big brothers from different families wait for you. Su Weifeng's eyes flashed with coldness, staring at Jin Yu and said, why are we late? Don't you know? Just one sentence. Everyone suddenly felt a strong sense of conspiracy. Looking at Feng Beoer again, this girl looked very different from before she left, as if she was a sword that had been unsheathed, and her strength seemed to have improved a lot. But her left arm was in front of her chest, and her other right hand was supporting her left hand, as if her left hand had been injured. Jin Yu who laughed and said, who knows what you are doing? You take two beautiful girls out. Do you think you have sex with them every day? It's normal that you get up late. Su Weifeng shouted angrily, shut up, Jin Yu. If you have the courage, I will fight you fair and square. Do you dare? Jin Yu sneered and said, if you want to fight me, it's not impossible, but not now. Today I have to fulfill the last bet. I want to fight her. What, do you want to go back on your word? Su Weifeng was speechless for a moment, his face looking extremely ugly. Jin Yu took a step forward and said, Su Weifeng, you were the one who proposed to bet $1 billion with me. I didn't want to bet with you, but you were so aggressive that I was forced to agree to it. Now you want to go back on your word. Even if I, Jin Yu, agree to it, I'm afraid no one else will agree to it, right? This bet must go on. The method was proposed by you. It's absolutely impossible to change it now. That's right, the ZHU family and the Shu family took our bet. It would be meaningless if we go back on our word. We are not here to joke with you. You have to compete in this match today, whether you want to or not. People from the big families began to clamor, forcing Su Weifeng to fulfill the match. They all saw that Feng Beoer was clearly injured. As for how she was injured, they didn't bother to care. Anyway, they knew that Jin Yu would win this time. That also meant that the Jin family and the Liu family in the provincial capital would rise this time, and the ZHU family and the Shu family would perish. Giving timely assistance is valuable, but not everyone can do it. However, anyone can easily do something like kicking someone when they are down. The neutral families who were watching the fun could no longer hold back, and began to support the Jin family. The people from the ZHU and Shu families all looked very unhappy. The people from the Zheng and Zhao families almost wanted to kick someone when they were down, but Zhao Mingyang and Zheng Yulan tried their best to dissuade them, and the two families stopped talking. Jin Yu shrugged his shoulders and said, you see, this is the voice of the masses. Su Weifeng looked grim and said, everyone, you all saw what happened today. Feng Beoer was attacked and was seriously injured. I apply for this match to be postponed for a month. No. We don't have so much time to play with you. If you say today, it's today. You said you were injured, then you were injured. This trick is too boring. If you say you were injured again after another month, do you have to delay it? Let's compete quickly. How much is our time? Young man, when we played this little trick, you were still in your mother's womb. Every time everyone said a word, Su Weifeng's face became uglier. Suddenly, he roared angrily, saying, do you have to compete today? Yes. Almost in unison. Su Weifeng shouted again, then we lost. You still have to fulfill this bet. Of course. This time it was almost unanimous. Then someone said, it is only natural to admit defeat. Whoever loses today will not admit it. If anyone refuses to admit it, then all our families will unite to deal with him. Yes. We will work together this time. Su Weifeng laughed and said, okay, you are alright, Jin Yu. Then today I will let Feng Beoer compete with you. Jinyu shrugged his shoulders, pretending to be helpless, and said, alas, in this kind of competition, it is not fair to win, but no one is in the mood to drag it on with you, so let's end it early. Everyone gathered around the ring, and Jinyu and Feng Bao were already standing on the ring. Jinyu looked at Feng Bao and felt a sense of danger in his heart. The girl standing in front of him was like a ferocious leopard who might rush up and bite him at any time. He even felt a murderous aura from Feng Bao. This kind of murderous aura can only be possessed by people who have truly killed others. What on earth has this woman experienced in the past month? This shocked Jinyu. A month ago, he had just beaten Feng Bao. He knew very well what Feng Bao's strength was at that time. But now, she has improved so much. How did she do that? Chapter 570, A Losing Game. Feng Bao looked at Jinyu, and a surge of anger rose in her heart. Last time, it was this guy who stepped on her and humiliated her. She, Feng Bao, was not afraid of losing the fight, but she could not accept being humiliated like this after losing. She had to suppress the humiliation she had suffered completely, and just now, she saw the good and evil faces of those people. In order to win, and to seize the property of the ZHU and Shu families, they were also unrighteous, that they would rather let a wounded woman like her fight with a big man like Jinyu. Jinyu felt that he was being stared at by Feng Bao, and his momentum was about to be suppressed. At this time, he shouted angrily, "Little girl, I showed mercy to you last time, but I won't let you this time." He wanted to suppress the disadvantage and momentum in this way. Feng Bao snorted coldly at this time, and said, "Do you still have the qualifications to let me go now? Haha, just you? Even if you have made some progress in this month, you are still far behind me. You know, I have been fighting in the mercenary organization for many years, and I have killed more people with my own hands than you can imagine." Feng Bao's eyes became colder, and he said, "From now on, you no longer have this opportunity." After saying that, Feng Bao took a step forward, and a roar like thunder burst out of his mouth. He rushed towards Jinyu like a leopard, and punched Jinyu in the chest, looking for death. Jinyu also shouted loudly, and rushed forward directly. The two people fought together in an instant. This kind of fight is not the kind of fight in the kung fu movies. That can only be filmed in the movies. The real fight is a fighting match in the iron cage. It is impossible to avoid the punches completely, not to mention the flesh. It is more about blocking with arms, and more about testing a person's ability to resist blows. These big guys are well informed, and have many masters at home, so it is not surprising to see such a scene. But they are all shocked. Feng Bao is a woman. She is naturally inferior to men in fighting. Moreover, she was nothing a month ago, but now she can fight on equal terms with Jinyu. This is because Feng Bao's left arm is injured. Otherwise it seems that she can still have the upper hand. Qiao Yushan, Lin Zhuangsun, Zhao Ziaoshu and Sun Yumeng saw this kind of fight for the first time. Their hearts were immediately raised to their throats, and they dared not even breathe. Several people's hands were grasping each other, and their fingers were clenched white, but they didn't feel any pain. The people watching next to them were like this, and Jinyu, who was in the competition, was even more shocked at this time. It has only been a month, and Feng Bao has become so strong. Whether it is strength or agility, it is not inferior to him. Even the reaction to the enemy is definitely not inferior. You have to know that these abilities of his were developed in the mercenary group in the past few years. They were developed after participating in many missions and experiencing many dangers, especially the murderous aura and the fierceness of Feng Bao, which must not be developed by ordinary training. He really couldn't imagine what Feng Bao had experienced in the past month. Although he was surprised at Feng Bao's improvement in strength, Jinyu was still full of confidence at this time. It seems that he is as strong as Feng Bao, but he is a man. In terms of physical reserves, he must be stronger than Feng Bao. The longer the time, the more obvious his advantage will be. Another point is that Feng Bao's left arm was injured. Now he is inconvenient to move, and he obviously dare not exert force. He only needs to deal with Feng Bao's left arm in a targeted manner. Feng Bao will be injured more and more, and the pain will greatly reduce Feng Bao's strength. After deciding on the strategy, Jin Yuhu's attacks were all concentrated on Feng Bao's left side. In a few seconds, Feng Bao was at a disadvantage. She didn't dare to resist with her left arm, so she could only dodge as much as she could. Her strength was immediately reduced. Su Weifeng shouted angrily, "Jin Yuhu, do you still have any shame? You still use such means to deal with a woman? Are you still a man?" Jin Yuhu didn't answer, and Wu Kuan'Yao and his men immediately shouted. Wu Kuan'Yao said disdainfully, "Su Weifeng, there are no rules for this game. What's the point of you talking nonsense here?" Mi Xiangang also sneered and said, "This is a tactical strategy." Qiao Qingming snorted and said, "This is not allowed. That is not allowed. Is it because she is a woman? The chest can't be hit, the face can't be touched, then just admit defeat." Su Weifeng's face suddenly swelled red, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Jin Yuhu, you have practiced martial arts for many years. Don't you have any martial arts spirit at all?" Jin Yuhu frowned, and Jin Chengfeng immediately shouted loudly, "Don't be affected." Jin Yuhu's face suddenly sank, and he attacked Feng Bao's left side more persistently. Seeing Su Weifeng so angry, the faces of the ZHU family and the Shu family all became extremely ugly at this time. Even if Meng Keqing was behind them, if they really lost this game, even if they could save the two families, their strength and reputation would be greatly damaged. In addition to watching the two people on the field, everyone else also looked at Su Weifeng and the ZHU and Shu families. Their reaction made the people of the big families excited, which meant that Jin Yuhu would definitely win this game. They were already thinking about how to divide the assets of the ZHU and Shu families. The Jin and Liu families were talking and laughing at this time. They would be the biggest beneficiaries this time. The people of other families around them were obviously trying to please and curry favor with them. Bang! There was a muffled sound. Feng Bao had no way to avoid it, and her left arm was hit by Jin Yuhu's heavy punch. Feng Bao took several steps back, and her face showed a strong look of pain. Jin Yuhu laughed loudly, and immediately followed up and rushed over, attacking Feng Bao's left arm with two punches like raindrops. He could feel that Feng Bao's left arm was very weak just now. He would not give Feng Bao any chance to take advantage of her illness. Feng Bao could only cross her arms to protect her vitals, and she had no power to fight back. Hit! Hit! Many people shouted wildly and excitedly at this time, and the beast nature hidden in their hearts was also aroused. When Jin Yuhu heard this voice, he was even more imposing. At this time, he didn't need to defend at all, because he knew that Feng Bao had no strength to fight back. Victory was just around the corner, and he was going to defeat Feng Bao in one go. But just as he used all his strength to punch Feng Bao's left arm again, Feng Bao's left arm suddenly came up. Chapter 571. Turning defeat into victory. Jin Yuhu's eyes showed a ferocious look. If the opponent used this arm to meet him, it would undoubtedly be courting death. This would definitely be a desperate struggle, and his left arm would be completely disabled. How could Jin Yuhu give up such a good opportunity? He threw his fist without hesitation. A muffled sound. Feng Bao's left arm, which should have been disabled, actually burst out with a powerful force at this time. Although it could not completely withstand Jin Yuhu's full strength attack, it only made her left arm shrink back. At this moment, Feng Bao's right fist, which had been ready for a long time, suddenly attacked. This punch was completely unexpected, and it was extremely fast and powerful. A hook punch hit Jin Yuhu's chin. Jin Yuhu was at the most advanced moment to attack. It was too late to make any other reactions. In horror, he could only turn his head slightly, which was also the combat experience accumulated by many years of mercenary. Feng Bao's punch did not hit Jin Yuhu's chin, but it still hit Jin Yuhu's side face. With a muffled sound, Jin Yuhu's head shook involuntarily, and the shock in his brain made him dizzy, but he still realized a problem. That is, he was fooled. Feng Bao's left arm was actually fine. In a real battle, the outcome is decided at that moment. Feng Bao's own strength is actually weaker than Jin Yuhu's, and the most important thing is that her combat experience is still much worse than Jin Yuhu's. Even though Feng Bao has improved a lot in this month's training, she is still not Jin Yuhu's opponent in a normal competition. So her arm injury was a trap set by Su Weifeng for Jin Yuhu from the beginning. After a successful punch, Feng Bao immediately punched Jin Yuhu one after another. At this time, the effect of training came out. Even if Jinyu Hu held his head to defend, Feng Bao was still able to seize the opportunity and quickly punch Jinyu Hu's head. Even though Jinyu Hu's ability to resist blows is very strong, Feng Bao's fist power is also very strong, which is not something that one person can bear. Boom. Jinyu Hu was hit by several heavy punches and fell to the ground. Feng Bao pounced on Jinyu Hu's head like a hungry tiger. Jinyu Hu was able to block the first two blows with his arms, but after a few blows, his arms became limp and his head was completely exposed. It was obvious that he had been knocked unconscious. Stop it. Jin Feng screamed like crazy, but Feng Bao seemed not to hear him and continued to hit Jinyu Hu's head. Su Weifeng said slowly at this time, "Do you admit defeat?" Jin Feng gritted his teeth. He knew that Su Weifeng was forcing him to say this. He really didn't want to say it, but that was his son. If he didn't admit defeat, he was afraid that Feng Bao would beat him to death. He shouted loudly, "We lost." Su Weifeng then shouted to Feng Bao, "That's enough." Feng Bao jumped up and stepped on Jinyu Hu's head. He raised his arms high and let out a long roar to the sky. Except for Feng Bao's long roar, no one around the entire ring spoke at this time. Everyone's expression was that of disbelief. It was clear that Jinyu Hu would win the game, so how could he suddenly lose? We won. We won. ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling were the first to shout excitedly. In this matter, they were under the greatest pressure, and this pressure instantly turned into a kind of excitement. This excitement made them forget everything else, and they all rushed to Su Weifeng. The two of them hugged Su Weifeng tightly on the left and right, and then kissed Su Weifeng madly. It seemed that only in this way could they vent their excitement at this time. Qiao Yushan, Lin Zhuangxuan and others were also very excited, but now they couldn't even occupy Su Weifeng's side, and they were all occupied by ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling. Su Weifeng let them get excited for a while, then pushed the two away, and then looked at the Jin family, saying, "Don't forget my $1 billion and the 100 million he owed me before. Give them all together." Jin Feng gritted his teeth, his face gloomy, and didn't answer. Su Weifeng ignored him and waved to Feng Bao. Feng Bao jumped down from the ring and left with Su Weifeng. Although ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling wanted to follow Su Weifeng, they knew that the next thing was more important. His eyes swept over the big families. The people from the big families, who were originally excited, now looked extremely ugly. ZHU Xiaoxuan smiled and said, "Uncles and aunts, I don't think you will default on your debt, right? Ha. Of course we won't default on our debt. I will arrange for someone to pay the bet right away. Yes, yes. This is interesting, niece. You did a great job." Several families came over to greet the ZHU and Xu families. They soon realized that the ZHU and Xu families had won this time. Regardless of whether the Jin and Liu families paid the bet, it would greatly enhance the reputation and strength of the Xu and ZHU families. It was clear who to get along with at this time. Most of these people were from the group that followed the trend. Now that the interests were clear, they no longer cared about whether they had any rifts with the ZHU and Xu families. They all came over to pledge their bets. The Liu and Jin families, who were just the center of attention, had only a few people around them. Some of them were the ones who had placed heavy bets at the beginning. Even if they tried to ease the tension with the ZHU and Xu families, it would not be easy. Wu Quan'ao, Kao Qingming, Mi Xianggong, and Li Zihao all looked as hen at this moment. They had just been showing off in front of ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling. They had already offended the ZHU and Xu families to death, but now the winners were the ZHU and Xu families. The two families would definitely remember this grudge, which had brought the entire family into trouble. The people from Zhao Mingyang and Zheng Yulong's families were overjoyed at this moment. Yulong and Mingyang. Not bad, not bad. You have good foresight. Fortunately, you stopped us, otherwise we would have made a big mistake. Yes, it is the young people who are enterprising. We are too conservative, and this foresight is beyond reproach. Yulong, Mingyang. The ZHU family and the Xu family are very busy now. You are their friends, so hurry up and help them. Zheng Yulong and Zhao Mingyang both came to ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling with some embarrassment. ZHU Xiaoxuan immediately smiled and said, "Come over and help quickly. Our two families can't swallow the benefits this time, and we need your help more. Zheng Yulang and Zhao Mingyang were very happy, but they were guilty in their hearts. They were not like Zhu Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling who could stand behind Su Weifeng without hesitation. Now that they have benefits, people are still thinking about them. Chapter 572. This is the master's wife. Su Weifeng didn't care about these things, and he didn't want to get involved in these things. He took everyone back home. As soon as he sat down, Feng Baoer came directly in front of Su Weifeng and knelt on both knees. Master, please accept my worship. As she spoke, she kowtowed to Su Weifeng. In the past month, although Feng Baoer also called Su Weifeng master, she still regarded Su Weifeng as a friend in her heart. But today's battle made up for all the humiliation she suffered. The gratitude made her really regard Su Weifeng as a master in her heart. Haha, okay, let's forget about the matter of teaching martial arts. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and pulled Feng Baoer up. Feng Baoer immediately laughed and said, I think so too. Otherwise, I will feel inferior to you and lose face in the future. PFFT, you don't even recognize your master for the sake of face. I have wasted my teaching for a month. Su Weifeng glared at Feng Baoer, but he felt relieved. If Feng Baoer insisted on being a disciple, it would make him uncomfortable. Feng Baoer was not familiar with the women here at all, so Su Weifeng introduced them to her. Feng Baoer grinned, glanced at Qiao Yushan, and said, so this is the real master's wife. Qiao Yushan squinted her eyes and said, then who do you think is your master's wife? Feng Baoer immediately looked at Su Weifeng guiltily and said, I only heard the master say how good the master's wife is, but I have never seen her. There are so many beauties here that I was dazzled, so I didn't see it for a while. Qiao Yushan snorted and said, it seems that you not only learned kung fu from him, but also learned this kind of nonsense to deceive people. Feng Baoer immediately laughed and said, no, my master is definitely a good man, and I, the apprentice, am just not that good. Feng Baoer said again, I have been away from the unit for a month. I will go back and report today. I'm leaving first. Then he drove away. He Xian felt that it was not appropriate for her to be here at this occasion, so she quickly chased Feng Baoer out. Baoer, I also want to go to your place to see you. Take me there. Lin Zhuangxuan said in surprise, is she well? Su Weifeng said, almost well. This month, Su Weifeng not only trained Feng Baoer, but also cured He Xian, and made her a good master. Now, those who are here are almost the permanent residents of Su Weifeng's family. What everyone is most concerned about is obviously Su Weifeng's experience in the past month. Su Weifeng picked out some things to tell them, such as the training on the prairie and the various dangers he encountered. Then the black boxing was changed to a fighting match to avoid scaring them. As for the last assassin's attack, Su Weifeng only emphasized how to use the assassin to create confusion and make everyone think that Feng Baoer was injured. Even so, the four people were dumbfounded. The corners of Qiao Yushan's mouth twitched, and she said, you are really good at acting. At that time, even we thought that Feng Baoer was injured, and we thought we were going to lose this time. Lin Zhuangxuan tilted his head and looked at Su Weifeng and said, this is really a great acting skill. No matter what drama our company shoots in the future, you must be the male lead, otherwise it will be a waste. Su Weifeng felt that this was not good and hurriedly said, I have no choice. If I don't do this, Feng Baoer will definitely not be able to beat Jin Yuhu. I bet $1 billion and I can't afford to lose. In order not to sell myself out, I'm trying my best to show my acting skills. The corners of Qiao Yushan's mouth twitched, then she coughed lightly and said, $10 billion. Can they really give it? Su Weifeng said, they have to give it this time. The ZHU family and the Shu family have handed over the fate of their family. They still want to default on their debts, and they can't bear the consequences. What do you want to do with so much money? Qiao Yushan asked curiously. This. Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, then shrugged his shoulders and said, I really haven't thought about it. Qiao Yushan said, you have so many assets in your hands, if you just leave them there, it's really useless. You either invest them or do something. You can't just put the money in the bank, right? Lin Zhuangxuan immediately said, that's easy. Why don't you come back and help Wei Feng manage it? Qiao Yushan was really tempted. This was a huge sum of money. Even if she wanted to do any industry, she didn't have to worry about the issue of funds. She could just go for it. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately said, what else are you thinking about? Your husband at home has so much money, but you don't manage it. You go out to make other people's money. How boring are you? Qiao Yushan looked at Lin Zhuangxuan and said, do you really want me to come back and take care of it? Lin Zhuangxuan said, of course. If you don't come back, be careful that your brother-in-law will spend all his money on other women. As a wife, if you don't control your husband's money, you are just waiting for your husband to make a mistake. Qiao Yushan suddenly smiled and said, let's talk about it later. I definitely can't spare the time to do this now. The phone rang, and Qiao Yushan shook her head and said, I have delayed a lot of things because of you. Now I have to go back. What? You're going back now? Lin Zhuangxuan widened his eyes and said, you and your brother-in-law haven't seen each other for a month. A short separation is better than a new marriage. How can you leave your brother-in-law alone at home? Qiao Yushan shrugged helplessly and said, this is an important meeting. I have to attend, but I will be back tomorrow night. Su Weifeng stood up and sent Qiao Yushan out. Qiao Yushan's car was waiting at the gate of the community, and the two walked side by side to the gate of the community. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, Yushan, you are really avoiding me. Qiao Yushan snorted and said, I'm not your real wife. You and Zhuangxuan are just getting married after a short separation. If I'm here, it won't delay your business. Su Weifeng was speechless for a moment. Qiao Yushan changed the subject and said, you think too much. This meeting is indeed something I must hold, and I know very well that Zhuangxuan doesn't want to break the current situation, and I can't ignore her feelings. Su Weifeng said helplessly, you two, actually I think you two can talk openly. Qiao Yushan snorted and said, I won't talk. What is there to talk about? Do I want to compete with my sister for a husband or a man? If she wants it, I'll give it to her. Anyway, I'm not in a hurry to find a man. Then he threw his bag and got into a black car. Su Weifeng stood at the gate of the community and couldn't help but sigh again. He always felt that this matter was the most unfair to Qiao Yushan. Chapter 573 1 + 1 is greater than 2. Back to the villa. Lin Zhuangxuan came over and sat on Su Weifeng's lap, wrapped her arms around Su Weifeng's neck, and said, my sister is not angry or anything, right? No, she is really upset. Su Weifeng hugged Lin Zhuangxuan's waist and couldn't help but kiss her on the cheek. Lin Zhuangxuan hit Su Weifeng lightly and said, hey, be careful. Zhao Xiaoshu chuckled and said, it's okay, we just pretend we didn't see it. Sun Yumeng stood up with a blushing face, pulled Zhao Xiaoshu, and said, I have something to discuss with you. Zhao Xiaoshu pouted and said, Sister Yumeng, we don't have to avoid it, I miss brother Su too. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, there is really no need to avoid it. We can't do anything. Let's just chat together. Sun Yumeng was very embarrassed. She looked at Su Weifeng and sat down again, but lowered her head and didn't dare to look around. Su Weifeng smiled and said, how have you been these days? Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled, got off Su Weifeng's legs, and said, let Xiaoshu and Yumeng report to you. I'll go take a shower and wait for you in the bedroom. Then Lin Zhuangxuan walked upstairs with light steps. When Lin Zhuangxuan did this, the three people understood what was going on. Lin Zhuangxuan was making room for them. Su Weifeng really missed them after not seeing them for a month. He also knew everything with Zhao Xiaoshu and Sun Yumeng, so he didn't need to be hypocritical. With his arms outstretched, Su Weifeng looked at the two of them and said with a smile, do you want me to hug you? Zhao Xiaoshu immediately cheered, came over and sat next to Su Weifeng, hugged Su Weifeng's waist, and then kissed Su Weifeng on the face. Su Weifeng looked at Sun Yumeng, smiled and said, Yumeng, don't you want me to hug you? Sun Yumeng nodded gently, but still sat there without moving. Zhao Xiaoshu immediately jumped over and pulled Sun Yumeng up. Sun Yumeng then reluctantly sat on the other side of Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng gathered his arms and hugged both of them. Brother Su, I miss you so much. Zhao Xiaoshu said. Tears actually flowed out. This was definitely a true expression of love. Although Sun Yumeng did not speak, she held Su Weifeng's hand tightly. It was just a small gesture, but it also made Su Weifeng feel the affection of Sun Yumeng. One of the two was enthusiastic and the other was reserved. The way of expression was different, but both made Su Weifeng deeply moved. Brother Su. Zhao Xiaoshu raised her head and looked at Su Weifeng with watery eyes. Zhao Xiaoshu was very smart. She knew very well that when the three of them were together, she was a guiding light. Only if she did something first, the show could continue. Sun Yumeng was shy. It was impossible to expect her to take the initiative to do something. And when Su Weifeng treats the two of them, he seems to be less relaxed, so only she can take the initiative. But when she looked up, Zhao Xiaoshu saw that Su Weifeng was motionless and even closed his eyes. They were not unfamiliar with this kind of scene, which made Zhao Xiaoshu dumbfounded, a little happy, and a little depressed. She whispered to Sun Yumeng, "Sister Yumeng, Brother Su is like that again." Sun Yumeng looked up quickly and immediately found Su Weifeng's state. She was a little surprised at first, and then a happy and sweet smile appeared on her face. Zhao Xiaoshu lowered her voice and said, "Sister Yumeng, Brother Su can't do anything if he's like this, and you're still happy." Sun Yumeng nodded gently, but her tone was even more gentle and sweet, and said, "Yes, I'm so happy. You know that only when Brother Su is truly in love can he enter this realm. He just hugged us just now, and it's like this. Aren't you happy?" Zhao Xiaoshu's eyes lit up immediately and said, "Not bad, not bad. I really should be happy. Now Brother Su obviously likes us more and is more sincere." Sun Yumeng nodded and then whispered, "Don't talk, so as not to offend Brother Su." Zhao Xiaoshu agreed and snuggled up to Su Weifeng, feeling indescribably happy and satisfied. More than an hour later, Lin Zhuangxuan came downstairs again in pajamas. Seeing the three of them sitting on the sofa in the living room hugging each other, he couldn't help but say with a smile, "You three, do you have to be so honest?" Sun Yumeng and Zhao Xiaoshu both hushed to remind Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately knew what happened, raised his index finger, and touched his lips, then tiptoed down. Su Weifeng opened his eyes at this time and said, "It's okay, I'm done." Lin Zhuangxuan immediately said apologetically, "Did I disturb you?" Su Weifeng smiled and said, "No, I just finished, and you came down at the right time." Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled, then said curiously, "That's good, but what did you do, and how did you enter the realm?" Zhao Xiaoshu pouted and said, "I didn't do anything. Sister Yumeng and I just sat down, and Brother Su hugged us, and then it happened." Lin Zhuangxuan immediately chuckled and said, "It seems that the power of you two is huge. Just such a small action can cause such an effect." Zhao Xiaoshu blinked and said, "I was thinking about this just now, Sister Zhuangxuan. Do you think it's because Sister Yumeng and I are together, so this has the effect of 1 + 1 being greater than 2? Lin Zhuangxuan touched his chin, then nodded in agreement, and said, "In ancient times, men had 3 wives and 4 concubines, so being hugged by women on both sides was the dream of many men. The effect of the two of you will definitely be greater than that of one person." Zhao Xiaoshu immediately said excitedly, "If that's the case, then wouldn't it be better if there were 3 of us in the future?" Puff. Cough. Su Weifeng quickly coughed to cover himself up. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, "Just look at someone's reaction and you'll know." Su Weifeng was even more embarrassed and said, "My method requires true feelings, not random." Lin Zhuangxuan gave Su Weifeng a contemptuous look and said, "You don't have to deny it. True feelings are the basis, but intimacy is also necessary, and different degrees of intimacy will also trigger different effects. You can't deny it, right?" Zhao Xiaoshu stuck out his tongue and said, "Doesn't that mean that the more ridiculous this thing is in the future, the better?" Lin Zhuangxuan said in agreement, "It's really very possible. I'm thinking, should we also learn it? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 574, Relatives Looking for Benefits. Lin Zhuangxuan and Zhao Xiaoshu were talking more and more ridiculous. Even though Su Weifeng was a man, his face turned red. Sun Yumeng couldn't stand it anymore and buried her head in Su Weifeng's arms, covering her ears with her hands. After such a commotion, everyone was no longer in a hurry to get intimate with Su Weifeng, and they all relaxed a lot. Sun Yumeng said, "I'll go make dinner." Zhao Xiaoshu also stood up quickly and said, "I'll go help, Sister Zhuangxun, I'll leave it to you." Lin Zhuangxun smiled and said, "I'd better wait until the evening to enjoy it together. I won't eat secretly now. Let's go, let's cook together and serve this great contributor who made $1 billion US. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "Then I'll go back and take a shower first." These days outside, Su Weifeng really suffered a lot, but he didn't take these sufferings seriously at all. Now that he is back, he will naturally enjoy this comfortable family life. Soaking in the bathtub, surrounded by hot water, is such an enjoyment. After soaking for a while, the door opened, and Lin Zhuangxuan appeared at the door of the bathroom. Then Lin Zhuangxuan poked her head in, and said with a smile, "Do you want to take a bath together? Okay, if you are not afraid that I will eat you up, then come on." Su Weifeng waved with a smile. Lin Zhuangxuan walked into the bathroom fiercely and said, "Okay, I will eat you up today." When she walked to the side of the bathtub, Lin Zhuangxuan glanced at Su Weifeng, suddenly scooped up water and poured it on Su Weifeng's head, then turned around and walked out. Su Weifeng laughed and said, "Why did I run away?" Lin Zhuangxuan raised her chin and said proudly, "Huh, you and that little girl can produce that state just by hugging, and I was sitting on your lap at that time, and you didn't react. I'm not convinced. What's more, you just produced that state, and if you have sex with me and don't produce that state, then I'll be so embarrassed." Su Weifeng laughed and said, "Aren't there two of them together? If they were alone, there would definitely not be this effect." Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly turned her head and took 2 steps towards Su Weifeng, then blinked mischievously and said, "Two of them have such a good effect, so you say. If I'm with Qiao Yushan in the future, will you be able to fly?" Su Weifeng subconsciously imagined this scene and suddenly felt that his nose was about to bleed. Lin Zhuangxuan laughed out loud, pointed at Su Weifeng, and said, "Your thoughts are really evil, you are so evil." Su Weifeng said awkwardly, just fantasize. Men always need some fantasy. Bah, you just have such an idea." Lin Zhuangxuan gave Su Weifeng a big contempt. Then he touched his chin and said, "This matter is really difficult. Qiao Yushan's personality is so awkward with you now. You haven't even settled her. You want her to be with me. This matter, you think too early." Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, "I didn't dare to think about it." Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes at Su Weifeng again and said, "A real man, if you think about it, just think about it. You are hiding it. I really despise you." Su Weifeng was immediately choked by Lin Zhuangxuan and was speechless. "You should think about how to deal with Qiao Yushan as soon as possible. It's almost time. You should go down too. Sun Yumeng is going to make you a big meal. You have to go down early, otherwise you will disappoint the girl." Lin Zhuangxuan went downstairs after she finished speaking, not giving Su Weifeng any chance to get intimate with her. Sun Yumeng really put in a lot of effort today. She even prepared a full table of dishes. As soon as Su Weifeng arrived at the restaurant, the fragrance had already hit his nose. After the 4 of them sat around and had a delicious meal, Su Weifeng wanted to go home to see his parents. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately told Qiao Yushan about this. Qiao Yushan immediately told Lin Zhuangxuan to let Lin Zhuangxuan pretend to be her and go back, otherwise it would seem too unfilial. So Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan found some gifts from home. Su Weifeng had been away for a month, so it was obviously unreasonable for him to come back without bringing gifts to his parents. When Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan arrived at his parents' house, there were actually 3 people at home. A middle-aged couple in their 50s, and a young man in his 20s. "Dad, Mom." Lin Zhuangxuan greeted them sweetly. Shenji quickly let them in and said, "This is your dad's cousin. You have to call him uncle and aunt. This is your cousin." Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan quickly greeted the middle-aged couple. The young man took the initiative to say, "Brother, my name is Li Xiaofeng. Have you eaten?" Shenji asked. Su Weifeng said, "We're finished, you guys eat yours." Dad Su Qiango and his cousin continued to drink at the table, and the rest of the people sat down in the living room. After chatting for a few sentences, Li Xiaofeng hesitated several times. Su Weifeng knew that he must have something to ask for a favor, so he said, "Xiaofeng, do you have something to say?" Li Xiaofeng smiled awkwardly and said, "Brother, sister-in-law, I do have something to ask you." Su Weifeng said, "Tell me what it is. If I can help, I will naturally help." Li Xiaofeng hurriedly said, "After I graduated from university, I happened to catch up with the policy, so I returned to the village to become the village chief. I wanted to make a big splash, but there are not many resources in the village. I do have some ideas. I want to start 2 village-run enterprises, but I have no funds. This, brother, sister-in-law, can you invest some money?" Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, "What kind of enterprise should we start?" Li Xiaofeng immediately spoke out his ideas, and he spoke very clearly. Obviously, he had been preparing for these things in his mind for a long time. Su Weifeng didn't want to know what he wanted to do, but just wanted to see if he was fooling around. However, through this exchange, he felt that this young man was also a businessman, so he asked, "How much money do you lack now?" Li Xiaofeng said, "We need a total of 600,000 yuan. Our village can raise 100,000 yuan, and we still need 500,000 yuan." At this point, Li Xiaofeng felt a little embarrassed, which was equivalent to asking Su Weifeng to take all the investment. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, 500,000 yuan is not much. I invested in you, but we have to settle the accounts clearly. You have to know how I spent the money in the future." Li Xiaofeng immediately said seriously, "Absolutely no problem. I will definitely make the accounts clear, and every penny will be spent on the right things." Su Weifeng really didn't care about 500,000 yuan. Now, let alone 500,000 yuan, even if it was 500 million yuan, he would not take it seriously. But Su Weifeng would not give money to people casually. Many people get money too easily, that is, they don't know how to cherish it, and they will go astray, which will harm him instead. In fact, Su Weifeng had another consideration when he agreed to this. Chapter 575 No. Li Xiaofeng and his family left happily. Before leaving, they not only thanked Su Weifeng profusely, but also Su Qianguo and Shenji. This made Su Qianguo feel very proud. After all, this was his cousin. Shenji snorted and said, "Look at your boastful look. Our son is rich now, but we can't just ask a relative to help him." Su Qianguo said, "Xiaofeng is also doing serious work, and I didn't force Weifeng to agree. This matter was discussed by Weifeng and Xiaofeng." Shenji said unhappily, "It was not because of your face that my son agreed." Su Weifeng put his arm around his mother's shoulders and said with a smile, "Mom, you are really wrong. I do think Xiaofeng is not bad. He is so young, and he directly became the village chief. If he does a good job, it will benefit the people. In addition, I still remember the village where he is. I may have to do something else in that village in the future, so let's make a good relationship first." "What do you want to do?" Shenji asked curiously. Su Qianguo also said in confusion, "I think I took you to Xiaofeng's village once, when you were a child. Do you remember?" "I remember. The scenery of the village is pretty good, and there are some special products. It's just that it's in the mountains and the transportation is not very convenient. If the road is built, and the things in the mountains are transported out, this investment will not be a loss." Lin Zhuangxuan asked curiously, "The profit from this should not be very large, right?" Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Of course I have another idea. I remember that there is a kind of fruit in the mountain that is regarded as a treasure abroad. I don't know if my judgment is right. After a while, I will go and take a look. If it is true, then I will make a lot of money." Shenji then smiled and said, "My son is still smart." Then he said with a stern face, "I'm just afraid that your father will make trouble for you when he has nothing to do. My son has money, which he earned through hard work. We don't need to care about those relatives who want to come to our house to get cheap money. It's not that we are rich and unkind. We can help those in need, but we can help them in emergencies, not in poverty. Some people are poor because they are lazy. If you help them, they will just spend the money and then ask for more money endlessly. That's a bottomless pit." Su Qianguo rolled his eyes and didn't answer. Although their family was not rich before, it was at least okay. Sukayango had a relative who always borrowed money endlessly and then went out to eat, drink, whore and gamble with the money. Shenji hated this kind of people the most. Now the old couple live freely, and the relationship between Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan is at least very satisfactory to the old couple. So they don't worry about Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan's affairs at all. Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan come to visit from time to time, and they are satisfied. Lin Zhuangxuan was still very careful about her words and deeds here. After all, the person who had been in contact with Su Weifeng recently was Qiao Yushan, and Su Weifeng's parents also knew her. If she didn't pay attention to imitating Qiao Yushan, it would be easy for the two old people to find out that there was something wrong. At around 9 o'clock, Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan left, and their parents didn't try to stop them. After getting in the car, Lin Zhuangxuan said with a smile, "Does Xiao Feng have something else that you value more?" Su Weifeng nodded, and while starting the car, he smiled and said, "I can't hide anything from you. In fact, I vaguely remember that there is a special herb there, which has some special effects. I have always wondered where I saw this herb before. Today, when I saw Xiao Feng and the others, I remembered that I saw it from him. Can it heal your injuries?" Lin Zhuangxuan asked doubtfully. "That's not possible, but it does have other effects. But I don't know if it's true. I'll go and have a look in 2 days." Lin Zhuangxuan patted his chest and said, "You scared me. I thought I could recover your injury." Su Weifeng couldn't help, but said with a smile, "You can recover my injury. What are you afraid of?" Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes at Su Weifeng and said, "What do you think?" Su Weifeng turned his head and glanced at Lin Zhuangxuan, then reached out and held Lin Zhuangxuan's hand and said emotionally, "You are so good to me." Lin Zhuangxuan snorted proudly and said, "You know how good I'm to you, so don't let me down. If you can't heal your injury, don't blame me for being rude to you." Su Weifeng said softly, "How is that possible? I will never let you down no matter who I let down." Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, "Then don't let anyone down. Be a good playboy." "Do you think I'm a unique girlfriend who encourages my boyfriend to be a playboy?" Su Weifeng nodded vigorously and said with great certainty, "Yes, you are really the best girlfriend in the world." Lin Zhuangxuan blinked playfully and said, "Yes, are you happy?" Su Weifeng laughed immediately, "Haha, so happy. A short separation is better than a new marriage." Lin Zhuangxuan naturally missed Su Weifeng very much. They haven't seen each other for more than a month, and they haven't been together. When they were together at night, Lin Zhuangxuan really wanted to do everything today. But for Su Weifeng's injury, she didn't want to waste the relationship between the two, so she was very patient. "Zhuangxuan, how about?" Su Weifeng felt that he could no longer control himself, hugged Lin Zhuangxuan, and asked tentatively. Lin Zhuangxuan nodded subconsciously, but immediately widened her eyes and said firmly, "Absolutely not. Zhuangxuan, I want you very much." Su Weifeng did not hide his feelings. Lin Zhuangxuan stroked Su Weifeng's cheek. Her face was also red, her eyes were like water. She said, "I want to, but we still have to be patient. If I were alone, I would be happy, no matter how I talk to you. But if we break through the last step first, I'm afraid that, when you get along with other people, unless you reach this step, you will become immune, and then it will not work, which will be very detrimental to your recovery from injuries." Su Weifeng grinned and said, "Not really? It's not impossible. I can't make it more difficult for you to recover from your injuries just because of my happiness, and we can't make it just because of temporary happiness." Su Weifeng said helplessly, "What you said does make sense. Yes, so you just bear with it, humph. I also remind you, when you are with others, you should also bear with it. Other things are fine, but don't break through this last level easily." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Yes, my first time must be reserved for you." Lin Zhuangxuan burst into laughter and said, "Puff, you still have a first time. Ghosts will believe you." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.